Chapter 985. Kunin shuddered fiercely. Like a mad kitten, she tore the letter into pieces and threw it at her feet. She stomped on it and scolded with a red face. Shameless. Pervert. Rogue. Despicable. Zhang Zhao was shocked and then angry. She did not know the crux of the matter. Seeing Kunan stomping her feet and scolding, she thought that the little lowly was scolding Bao Shiren. As Darren Bao's bodyguard, how could she pretend that nothing had happened? So she swung her body and flipped into the room. She raised her eyebrows and said, "Rude. Shut up." Kunan also lost her head in anger and screamed, "What does it have to do with you?" Zhang Zhao said coldly, "How is it none of my business that you are scolding Darren?" Kunan was in a fit of anger and was too lazy to explain to this cat that was neither human nor demon. She stomped her feet and said, "I'm scolding my shitty. What can you do about it? This idiot is pushing me into the fire pit." The two almost started a fight. Shen Yaohua, who was hiding in the dormitory, hurriedly walked out. "Please calm down. Miss Ko, what happened?" Kunin turned to look at her with an unfriendly expression. After Sun Lang did that, her body had grown a little. She had only told Shen Yaohua this secret. And how did Sun Lang know about this? She had not told anyone else. Shen Yaohua saw the questioning and wariness in her eyes and frowned. "Why is Miss Ko looking at me like this?" Kunan saw her innocent expression and said slowly, "Shitty Bao sent a letter asking me to go to Mars Sword Palace. He said that Sun Lang has agreed to treat my injuries." Shen Yaohua said in surprise, "This is a good thing." Kunan stomped her feet and said angrily, "Good my ass. He is such a shameless person." Shen Yaohua was extremely intelligent. Seeing Kunan's expression of anger, she thought for a moment and figured out the reason for Kunan's loss of self-control. She shook her head decisively and said, "General Sun is not such a person." Kunan said angrily, "You can't judge a book by its cover. You're not related to him, so how do you know he's not that kind of person? This kind of man with a glib tongue and the ability to be shameless." Shen Yaohua shook her head and said, "It is because of this ability that I can see that General Sun is a gentleman." Zhang Zhao was curious. Out of her cat's curiosity, she asked, "What ability?" To be honest, Miss Cat had a deep impression of Sun Lang. She had immigrated to Hutu for many years. Although she had an exotic face, she was already a real citizen of Hutu. This was not only reflected in her political standpoint, but also in her habits of thinking and behavior. She had probably reached the level of a traitor. Therefore, she acted like a citizen of the empire and respected order and rules like a citizen of the empire. She joined the civil service and became the captain of the guards of the mayor of the capital. She was cautious and conscientious in performing her public duties. The empire was founded on martial arts, so of course, people respected the strong. The society valued martial arts, so people obeyed the order more. After Ms. Zhang Zhao's body and mind were completely assimilated by the martial arts culture of Hutu, she suddenly found one day that there was a strange person in the capital who didn't fit in with the people around him. That person was bold and arrogant, and what impressed her the most was that no one could do anything to him. It was like a banana man who went to the United States of America in his early years was brainwashed by the air of freedom and democracy. After he became a defender of the free world, he suddenly found that there was a special general who came out of nowhere in Washington. He punched the House of Representatives and kicked the Senate. He was so bored that he even dared to mess with the president. He loved to go to Wall Street to smash and rob. He taught the consortiums as if they were his grandchildren and treated the sacred Constitution as nothing. The media, which usually dared to criticize anything, didn't even make a fart. When encountering this, the banana man must have doubted his life. In addition to being shocked, he must have a huge question in his heart. How could that special general be so powerful? That was why he was curious. After seeing Sun Lang for the first time, she had a lot of interest in this man and even wanted to test him. However, Bao Shiren saw through her thoughts and strictly prohibited her. At the same time, Sun Lang's whereabouts were also strange, so Miss Cat Tamer couldn't find a chance. But cats were like this. The more you didn't let her do something, the more she would try to find a way to try. Just like today. She just came to deliver a letter, but she didn't expect that the topic would involve the mysterious Shunsei general. Zhang Zhao's curiosity was aroused. Ability? What ability? Shameless? Was it some powerful martial arts? Zhang Zhao, a foreigner from the Dragon Sparrow dynasty, was obviously a fanatical kung fu enthusiast. 30% of her curiosity about Sun Lang came from his extremely amazing legendary martial arts. She really wanted to find a chance to see it. Kunan and Shen Yaohua were stumped by Zhang Zhao's question. What ability? This wasn't something that could be said casually. Kunan wasn't familiar with Zhang Zhao before, but now that her body had shrunk, her mind had also become smaller. She still remembered how Zhang Zhao had looked at her coldly just now. So she smiled maliciously. Why don't you try it yourself? Shen Yaohua pulled her sleeve. Miss Ke, don't be like this. Then she said to Zhang Zhao seriously, please forget Miss Ke's words. Keep an appropriate distance from General Sun and don't take the initiative to contact him. Otherwise, there will be trouble. She obviously didn't have a cat and didn't know Zhang Zhao's character. After Shen Yaohua said this, Miss Cat Tamer was even more curious. What did she mean? What did she mean? Could it be that Sun Lang's martial arts had already reached such a level? Was she not even qualified to fight with him? She was really curious. Bodyguard Zhang's tail swayed gently, and her ears trembled slightly. Shen Yaohua's main focus was Sun Lang's letter. She was sure that Sun Lang didn't know that Kunan's body had grown up unexpectedly. She also believed that Sun Lang didn't agree to treat Kunan's injury because he was lustful. After all, Kunan's internal injury was caused by the kung fu and the damage to her meridians. In theory, it could be cured by using the supreme internal force to reconstruct the 8 extraordinary meridians. Sun Lang had such martial arts cultivation. The reason why he couldn't do anything about Kunan's injury before was that he couldn't touch her. But after what happened a few days ago, this problem was no longer a problem. Shen Yaohua sighed slightly in her heart. She didn't know what kind of mood she was in now. The memory of that day was still fresh in her mind. Sun Lang's disappointed eyes, Sun Lang's surprised eyes, and the back view of him leaving decisively after he came to his senses. He must have suffered a lot because he couldn't touch a woman's body. He must have found the light of hope, but he left decisively. Why did he leave? Why did he give up? Both of them were well aware of the reasons. So these 2 days, she was also hesitating whether she should take the initiative to find Sun Lang. If she touched Sun Lang first, and then let Sun Lang treat Kunan's injury, the treatment process could be carried out smoothly and Miss Ku, who was suffering from internal injury, could be freed. But she hesitated. She didn't know what Sun Lang was thinking. She didn't know if Sun Lang wanted to see her. She didn't even know if Sun Lang believed her. But today, Bao Shiren's letter gave Shen Yaohua a definite answer. Since General Sun agreed to treat Kunan's injury, he must have made such a decision. After all, if he wanted to massage Miss Ku's acupoints and dredge her meridians, there must be a certain degree of physical contact. Since there must be physical contact, Shen Yaohua must participate. Thinking of this, Shen Yaohua's heart inexplicably leaped with joy. She thought for a moment and secretly made a decision in her heart. So she said to Kunan, since it's like this, I'll go with Miss Ku. Kunan was stunned for a moment. Then she shouted with a red face, Kunan will die, even if I die for the rest of my life. Before she finished speaking, she felt a cold touch on her lips. Shen Yaohua's finger was pressed against her lips. The sword sage's widow said softly, don't say such inauspicious things. Maybe the general has other plans. It's not a bad idea to go and see. With me accompanying you, there shouldn't be any problems. Her gentle and elegant temperament infected the angry Kunan. After a moment, the little lowly's anger dissipated. Okay, if he acts like a hooligan, you have to help me beat him. Shen Yaohua pursed her lips and smiled, nodding. She didn't dispel Kunan's doubts. She didn't tell her that she could offset Sun Lang's great protective power. This was Sun Lang's secret, and she chose to keep it a secret. At this moment, Zhang Zhao, who had been silent all this time, said, I'll go too. In the Mars Sword Palace, the messenger came back with a letter. After Bao Shiren heard the report, he thanked the messenger and sent him away. The capital governor glanced at Sun Lang and said, I added a layer of insurance on the letter. If someone secretly opened it, Zhang Zhao would find something strange. And the words the messenger brought back means everything is as usual. Are you satisfied, cautious General Shinsei? Sun Lang said indifferently. It's not too much to be cautious 100 times. Carelessness once can be fatal. Bao Shiren was a proper official of the capital. Although he was also from the prison, he clearly wasn't as suspicious as Sun Lang. He said, that messenger is a capable general that Wu Hui chose. Now that he's on your pirate ship and is doing his best for you, he'll definitely choose someone you can trust. Sun Lang said leisurely, Wu Hui's capable general. Can't he be the emperor's chess piece? Besides, can Wu Hui be trusted? Bao Haizi subconsciously glanced at the door, then lowered his voice. You don't even trust him? He already said those words, and even sent people to spread the word that you are the sword master according to your wishes. Sun Lang glanced at the Zhutian Bodhisattva barbarian on the sword rack, then said, So what? I still can't rule out the possibility that it's a ruse to gain my confidence. Have you ever thought, if he is a spy that the emperor ordered to get close to me, and all his previous actions were just an act to win my trust, then what? After thinking for a while, Bao Shiren also had to admit that this possibility could not be ruled out, but he still felt somewhat uncomfortable in his heart. Thinking back and forth like this, you're living a very tiring life. At least I can live. Sun Lang replied, the human heart is hard to fathom. For everything, you have to be prepared for the worst. Only this way will you not be flustered in the face of trouble. Bao Shiren was silent for a moment, then faintly said, Then do you trust me? A brief silence appeared in the air. Then Sun Lang replied as if nothing had happened. We are in the early stages of establishing a relationship of mutual trust. Trust is not established naturally, but is consolidated through actions. For example, Wu Hui is working hard for me now, so my trust in him has risen a little. Bao Shiren didn't know why, but he was somewhat irritated. He impatiently said, Just tell me if you trust me or not. Sun Lang said with a serious expression, Shout something like, Li Guangyan is a big idiot. I'm going to make him a cuckold for me to hear, and I will establish a good relationship of mutual trust and cooperation with you. Bao Shiren angrily said, I won't shout it. Sun Lang glared and said, Wow, we're going to rebel. You won't even curse the emperor, so how can I trust you? Bao Haizi became even angrier. Who wants to rebel with you? I'm doing this for. He couldn't say a revolutionary creed for a long time, and when he saw Sun Lang's mocking eyes, he became even angrier. Sun Lang was about to tell him about the revolutionary spirit of Comrade Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, who always kept his word and said that he would kill the entire Romanov family. But he did not expect that someone outside would report to him. Someone wanted to see Bao Shiren. The capital governor went out to greet them, and then brought back 3 people. Oh, Sun Lang lowered his voice and sighed. Kunan, Shinyawa Zhang Zhao, Lolita, human wife, cat girl. It was a very personalized combination. What was more interesting was that these 3 people were nominally looking for Bao Shiren, but when they came in, their eyes all fell on Sun Lang. Kunan's eyes were as sharp as a knife, full of bitterness and deep hatred. Shen Yaohua's expression was calm, and she nodded to him. Zhang Zhao looked up and down at Sun Lang, and didn't hide her curiosity. Sun Lang didn't speak, and the 3 women also didn't speak. The 4 of them looked at each other strangely. Bao Shiren, on the other hand, was standing at the side, feeling a little weird. He had a feeling of being excluded, especially among these 3. One of them was his dear senior sister, and the other one was his loyal guard. After a while, Sun Lang broke the silence and said, The 3 of you came at the right time. Miss Shun, Miss Ku, Miss Zhan, let me tell you a big piece of good news. Not long ago, Capital Governor Bao decided to abandon the dark and join the light, and discuss important matters with me, and together we will resist the tyranny of the incapable emperor. He even passionately shouted a revolutionary slogan, saying that he wanted to change the emperor's hat. Bao Shiren shouted, I didn't say that. Ku Nan disdainfully said, A bunch of nonsense. I understand Junior Brother Bao's personality. How could he do that? Zhang Zhao also said lightly. A few days ago, Bao Shiren was still irreconcilable with you, General. Even if he is a cat, his personality wouldn't change so quickly. Sun Lang looked at Bao Shiren with a smile that wasn't a smile and nodded. That's right, that's right. Bao Shiren is loyal, diligent in the affairs of the Emperor, mighty and unyielding. With such loyalty, even the Emperor will give him a trophy. Bao Shiren's face turned red, and he didn't know what to say. But at this time, hurried footsteps sounded, and Wu Hui hurriedly ran over, lowering his voice. General, it's not good. His Majesty has ordered to summon Bao Shiren into the palace for questioning. Chapter 986. The air suddenly became quiet. It even condensed into frost. Bao Shiren's angry expression also froze on his face. He looked as if he had seen a ghost when he heard, "Comrades from the Commission for Discipline Inspection are here." He was indeed panicking. He felt guilty as if he had been caught red-handed. After all, he was still a loyal and patriotic boy. Even if Sun Lang had foolishly pulled him onto a pirate ship and taken a look at him, he was still the mighty, unyielding, upright, and awe-inspiring young man Bao Qingtian. Then, he realized that he seemed to be on the list of anti-revolutionaries. He had just reached a certain level of consensus with Sun Lang here, and then the Emperor called him to the palace for questioning. It gave him a strange feeling that Big Brother is watching me. What should I do? What should I do? Sun Lang heartlessly moved to his side and whispered, "Since it has come to this, we might as well rebel." Rebel my ass. The panicked master, Bao, finally came to his senses. He jumped and shouted. Sun Lang's interruption finally woke Master Bao from his stupor. He scurried back and forth like a headless fly, frowning. His expression kept changing. Sometimes he was panicked, sometimes he was anxious, and sometimes he was determined. The three women who had just arrived were confused. They were indeed brothers from the same sect. Kunan saw Bao's expression and knew what was going on. The little lowly looked at Sun Lang, her tone still impolite. "Hey, what did you say to him?" Zhang Zhao frowned and said, "Sir, did you really?" Shen Yaohua stood to the side and said nothing. Her bright eyes fell on Sun Lang. "All right, don't leave." Sun Lang slapped the back of Bao Shiren's head. "It's not a big deal. Look at you being anxious. Let me handle it." Then, he looked at Wu Hui, who was standing by the door with an equally uneasy expression. "Who came to deliver the edict? A eunuch or an internal guard? Tell him to come in." Bao Shiren looked at Sun Lang's actions and was shocked. "What do you want to do?" Sun Lang said, "It's simple. Just say that we found important evidence and secrets in the Sword Palace. Before we find out the truth, Master Bao shouldn't have any contact with the outside world. Although it's half-hearted, if my attitude is firm, the eunuchs and internal guards who come to deliver the edict can't do anything. They're just following orders. I just need to beat them up and they can go back and report." Bao Shiren immediately said, "No, you can't do that." He took a deep breath and continued. "There is nothing wrong with the Emperor summoning an official for questioning. As an imperial envoy, I have to report the case from time to time. This is part of the problem. If you interfere to help me, it will instead deepen the Emperor's suspicions. I'll just go into the palace." Sun Lang shook his head and said, "That won't do. The Emperor is not a good person. This move of his is not bad. No matter what happens, as long as he calls an honest person like you into the palace for questioning, he will know most of the truth. You've entered his territory and are at his mercy." Bao Shiren calmly said, "I'll act according to the circumstances." Sun Lang rudely interrupted him. "Forget it. You're a good child. You won't even scold the Emperor. Can you lie to the Emperor? Or do you want to tell the Emperor everything that happened today?" While they were arguing endlessly, Kunan stepped forward and waved her hands. "You too. I'm asking questions. In any case, can you first tell me what happened?" Bao Shiren said, "Apprentice sister, let Sun Lang explain it to you. The Imperial envoy is waiting outside. I have to quickly go into the palace and see the Emperor to avoid the Emperor's suspicions," Sun Lang said disdainfully. "Avoid the Emperor's suspicions? He must have already had suspicions. The emperor failed to kill Wu Hui. Then, Wu Hui sent people everywhere to announce that I was the master of the sword. Even an idiot would be able to guess that Wu Hui had been instigated by me. What the emperor wants to know is just how many secrets Wu Hui has leaked. Hearing this, Bao Shiren glared at Sun Lang and complained, "You shouldn't have made such a big fuss. Couldn't you have quietly pretended that nothing had happened? Instead, you let sword attendant Wu spread the news everywhere." Sun Lang laughed coldly. "You're saying stupid things again. Ask Wu Hui. Would he be willing to keep quiet? Spreading the news that I am the master of the sword will expose the fact that he has already defected to me. But at the same time, his little life will have a layer of insurance. Since the entire capital knows that Wu Hui has defected to me, then if the emperor wants to touch him again, even if he doesn't consider my revenge, he still has to consider the reactions and discussions of the court. Otherwise, why do you think he is so eager to be a traitor?" Hearing this, Wu Hui lowered his head in fear and did not say a word. Bao Shiren was silent for a moment, then sighed. "In any case, you have to go." "I give up," Sun Lang said impatiently. "I'll go with you." Hearing this, Wu Hui's expression changed, revealing an anxious expression. Now, Sun Lang was his biggest backer and protector. If General Shansei and Bao Shiren entered the palace, it meant that the defenses of the Mars Sword Palace would be empty. If the emperor wanted to deal the final blow, this was the best chance, although he had just wantonly spread the news that he had become Sun Lang's disciple in order to make the emperor hesitate to attack. But to entrust his little life to his opponent's rationality was very unreliable in the first place. Bao Shiren also said, "That's not right. Perhaps the emperor wants to lure you into the palace." Hearing this, Xin Yaohua's expression changed slightly. Just as she was about to speak, she heard Sun Lang say, "It's fine." The flowing fire sword appeared in Sun Lang's hand. With a push of his hand, the sacred fire sword floated in the air, emitting a sword hum that sounded like the cry of a phoenix. As if resonating with the sword, the entire sword palace trembled slightly. The ancient walls and the flaming eaves all seemed to have a crimson energy flowing within them. Wu Hui was dumbfounded. He first glanced at the Mars sword manual that he had given to Sun Lang and was now casually tossed onto the table. Then, he looked at Sun Lang, his gaze filled with shock and awe. He had only looked at it for a short while, and he already knew how to use the sacred sword of fire as the core of the divine implement and activate the palace-guarding sword formation of the Mars Sword Palace. Sun Lang looked at Wu Hui and shouted, "You also know how to use the palace-guarding sword formation, right? I brought Bao Haizi all the way back to the Mars Sword Palace from the center of the palace. At most, the time it takes to brew a cup of tea is enough. You can borrow a portion of the power of Mars and control the palace-guarding sword formation. If you can't hold on for the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, then you can just die." Wu Hui hurriedly said, Yes, it's enough, it's enough." Only then did General Shinsei nod and say to Bao Shiren, "Let's go." Xin Yaohua saw that Sun Lang had activated the palace-guarding sword formation with the sacred sword and arranged everything properly. She couldn't help but open her mouth, but still swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. She sighed imperceptibly. With Sun Lang's martial arts, he could naturally hear this soft sigh, but he acted as if nothing had happened and was unmoved. Zhang Zhao's expression became more and more uneasy. "Sir?" Bao Shiren glanced at her and sighed, "Bodyguard Zhang, you shouldn't have come." The meaning of this line was too great. Sun Lang, who was clever, immediately chose to play along. He came to Bao Shiren's side and said gloomily, "Do you want a silencer? There's a very delicious snack called cat ears." Zhang Zhao was shocked when she heard this. Her 2 ears stood straight up, and even the fur on her tail stood up. The cat lady took a few steps back and lowered her body slightly, ready to fight. Although the enemy's martial arts were terrifyingly high, she was not the kind of cat that would give up without a fight. Bao Shiren didn't know whether to laugh or cry and said, "Shut up." He looked at the vigilant Zhang Zhao and said softly, "I'm sorry, Bodyguard Zhang. I might not be able to be the governor. So, thank you for protecting and following me these past few years." In the end, Zhang Zhao was not his personal bodyguard. She was appointed by the imperial court to protect him. This cat lady came from the Dragon Sparrow dynasty and had been serving the empire loyally since she was naturalized. After all, she came from an uncivilized land. Some choices were incomprehensible to her, and she didn't understand what righteousness was. Zhang Zhao's eyes widened in surprise. How can you talk like that? Idiot, you're a straight man. Sun Lang slapped Bao Shiren's head and said to Zhang Zhao, wait here first. We'll talk when we come back. Then, under everyone's gazes, he dragged Bao Shiren out of the room. Seeing Bao Shiren and Sun Lang's silhouettes disappear, the crowd retracted their gazes. Kunan and Shun Yaohua turned their gazes toward Zhang Zhao. As women, they were kind-hearted, so they sympathized with this cat girl. Zhang Zhao was still in a daze. She even forgot to wag her tail. After a moment, she said in a stupefied tone, that means, Lord Bao doesn't need me anymore? Kunan and Shun Yaohua looked at each other and secretly scolded Bao for being so insensitive. Zhang Zhao had been with him for a few years. He would even have feelings for a cat or a dog. How could he speak like that? After hesitating for a moment, Kunan said carefully, well, Junior Bao is like that. Don't take it to heart. Besides, His Majesty might not remove him from his position, Zhang Zhao said slowly. But Lord Bao's words clearly mean that he wants to part ways with me. Although Kunan was unhappy with Zhang Zhao's rudeness, she felt a little sad when she heard the cat lady's emotionless tone. She tried to persuade her patiently. He's doing it for your own good. After all, unexpectedly, Zhang Zhao didn't even listen. She said, I was ordered to be Lord Bao's guard. Since he doesn't need me anymore, I'm free. Am I right? Kunan's heart sank. She felt that Zhang Zhao must be heartbroken now, so she sympathized with this cat lady. She comforted her, Guard Zhang Zhao, my junior Bao is just a piece of wood. Don't take it to heart. In this world, there are many good men. If he chases you away, you can find a better one, Zhang Zhao said. Of course. I signed a contract with the court. Even if Lord Bao dismisses me, I will be assigned to a new high-ranking official. No matter what, I have to be a guard. It's better to find someone pleasing to the eye. I already have a candidate in mind. Everything is perfect. The only thing I need to worry about is whether the other party will like me, a lowly cat lady. No. You're so beautiful, and your ears are so cute. Why would anyone reject? Kunan comforted him. Halfway through, she felt that something was wrong. You don't seem sad. I'm a little sad. After all, Lord Bao is a very upright person and is very polite to me. He's also a respectable official. His daily tasks aren't heavy either. Basically, I can bask in the sun for an entire afternoon every 3 days. I'm really disappointed that he suddenly fired me from such a comfortable job. Zhang Zhao said seriously, but this is the fate of a cat. After being abandoned, I don't want to end up on the streets and fight with stray dogs for food. I have to find a new owner. Coincidentally, I met a very interesting person recently. I was worried about how to get to know him. Wait. Kunan scratched her head. She felt very strange. She shouted, Your reaction is a little wrong. Shouldn't you be heartbroken? Shouldn't you be hating him? How is that possible? Zhang Zhao said, I'm a cat. At the same time that an inexplicable quarrel broke out in the Mars Sword Palace, Sun Lang and Bao Shiren were also very lively. You, clothes, pattern tatters, Sun Lang said. As a winner in life, the god of flowers, I will teach you some principles of picking up girls. Back then, my wings were spread all over the universe, and my wives were taller than you when stacked up. What are you talking about just now? He said earnestly, That's a cat girl. Cat girl, do you understand? Chocolate and vanilla. King, Social Security. You're such an idiot. You're so untactful. You'll easily be cheated on. Bao Shiren said indifferently. Garjan is loyal and devoted, and he helped me greatly. But I can't implicate him in this current situation. After all, he's different from Senior Sister and the others, and he's completely unrelated to this matter. Sun Lang was so angry that he almost laughed. Little comrade, your thinking is very straight. Male chauvinist. It's clothes. What we care about now is equal rights. Men and women are equal. Since you love each other, you should face difficulties together. Don't think that you're great and throw each other aside. Bao Shiren was stunned. Then he flew into a rage. Sun Lang, you can't joke about this. Sun Lang was puzzled. What's wrong? Why are you so surprised? Bao Shiren suppressed his anger and said coldly, Are you willing to marry an orc from the Greenwood country? Sure. Sun Lang nodded. Chest, legs, but cute ears, good looks, good personality, fox ears, cat ears, and dog ears are priority. Swan race is also not bad. Forget about dragon people. Bao Shiren's gaze changed from anger to shock, and then from shock to disdain. When Sun Lang's topic turned to the rainbow pony, the capital governor's gaze was as if he was looking at a large human. He realized that he had underestimated Sun Lang's bottom line. That's an orc from the Greenwood country. Sun Lang glared. I didn't think that you'd be such a racist. That's too scary. Bao Shiren gritted his teeth. Anyway, I don't have any relationship with Garjon. I'm a good man with an indomitable spirit. Don't ruin our chastity. Sun Lang clicked his tongue and said, Let me tell you, if you were to be placed in the inner circle, you would definitely be cheated on. There will definitely be yellow-haired people who will take advantage of the situation to enter. Let me tell you. Chapter 987. Outside the palace gates of the imperial city, the envoy in charge of summoning Sir Bao was showing a pass to the guards. The head of the guards checked the pass while confirming the number of people. There were 2 envoy eunuchs. The governor of the capital, Bao Shiren, had come forward to meet the emperor. He was the white-faced scholar wearing the robes of a 4th-rank official. He had a crescent moon mark between his brows and was very easy to recognize. So, the head of the guards had a strange look in his eyes. The 2 eunuchs also had a pained expression, because Bao Shiren was not the only official who responded to the summons. There was also an ancestor standing beside Sir Bao. He was wearing the uniform of a 1st-rank general. He was like a moving scenery. F***CK, the head of the guards felt his balls ache. He had just changed shifts with his comrades and was not on duty during the morning court session. Thus, he had not personally seen this master's might and domineering manner. However, he had heard countless rumors. It was rumored that this general of divine strategies even dared to refute the emperor's face. The word rampant was simply tailor-made for him. On one side was the infamous General Sun Lang. On the other side was the duty of the emperor's personal army. He took a deep breath and gathered his courage. He said to the 2 eunuchs, The pass only summons Sir Bao to meet the emperor. Why? The eunuchs gave a smile that was uglier than crying. I have no choice. At this time, Sun Lang took a step forward. With a clatter, the 4 or 5 imperial guard around him took 3 steps back. Some of the more foolish ones even put down their spears in a panic. Their companions were shocked. They did not even care about military etiquette and reached out to grab their comrades' spears. They had a look that said, Did you eat sh**t? It was very embarrassing. Sun Lang ignored this. He said politely, It's like this. His Majesty is concerned about the progress of the case. After the incident at the Mars Sword Palace, he immediately summoned Sir Bao to the palace to report. But I feel that Sir Bao is sometimes scheming and inexperienced. He can't take charge alone. He needs an old comrade like me to help him. So, I volunteered myself and came here with Mayor Bao. He was so amiable that it gave people more pressure. Although the head of the guards was not as embarrassing as his subordinates, he still felt a lot of pressure. He swallowed and tried to make his tones sound tough. General, please forgive me. A lowly general has his duty. The imperial city's banned. Without permission, no one is allowed to enter. Sun Lang nodded and smiled. Understand. This is His Majesty's home. Of course I have to knock to see if they will let me in. If they don't, I will barge in. What the hell do you understand? Sun Lang spoke as if nothing had happened. Then he said to the 2 trembling eunuchs, Please go in and pass on the message. I also want to see His Majesty. The 2 eunuchs nodded as if they had been pardoned. One of them carefully turned his head and said, Sir Bao, please come with me. General, please wait for a moment. Sun Lang put his arm on Bao Shiren's shoulder and leaned his entire weight on it. He smiled and said, "That won't do. He has to stay with me. I'm afraid of strangers." The two eunuchs had no choice but to run in with teary faces to pass on the message. Bao Shiren smiled bitterly. "They're only following orders. Why do you have to make things difficult for them?" Sun Lang said, as if nothing had happened. "Since they are following orders, being troubled by me is also part of their job. If they are unhappy, they can resign." Sir Bao shook his head. "Nonsense," Sun Lang said lightly. "It is better for me to make things difficult for others than for others to make things difficult for my friends." Bao Shiren's expression changed slightly. "Does that include me?" Sun Lang looked at him with disdain. "Can you not be so gay?" Bao Haizi frowned. "What do you mean by give?" Sun Lang said seriously. "It is an adjective used to describe people who are naive and kind. They believe that there is kindness and beauty in the world, but are in a dilemma in the cold and cruel reality. They are indecisive and have illusions in their hearts." "That's right. The typical person is you. That is why you are gay." "Are you scolding me?" "No, I am praising you. In our hometown, where morals are declining and gradually becoming distorted, if a man openly declares that he is gay, he will receive superficial respect and blessings from the people. He will also receive politically correct preferential treatment, but he will also be secretly despised. Look, isn't that like you?" He counted with his fingers and said, "You are a celebrity official. You are known for being honest and upright. Everyone praises you as an honest official. When discussing the morals of an official, they will definitely set you up as an advanced example and praise you. But behind your back, they will think that you are an idiot, a donkey, a bastard, and a pretentious prick. Don't you think this makes sense?" Bao Shiren's expression darkened. He said in a low voice, "Yes." He was an honest official. He was good at governing. He was deeply loved and respected by the people. He was even famous and praised by the people. But for Bao Shiren, although these praises made him feel gratified for a moment, he also felt a faint sadness and helplessness. Because in a truly peaceful and prosperous era, the morals of an official did not need to be praised or praised. Just like in a true sage ruling the world, virtues did not need to be promoted, because people would naturally use them as instincts and benchmarks. At that time, the word virtue would naturally disappear. Corrupt officials would also completely disappear. The so-called honest official would no longer be a kind of praise. Bao Shiren yearned for that beautiful world. Not like now. The more praise and praise he received as the capital magistrate, the more it showed the corruption of the empire's administrative system. The more it showed the incompetence of the empire's bureaucracy. Behind the praise of the people, who knew how much disdain and ridicule was hidden, he sighed again. Sun Lang came to a conclusion. "So you are gay." Forget it. Although he felt that Sun Lang was teasing him again, Bao Shiren's mood had already become low. He did not feel like bickering with Sun Lang. He stood in place and stared blankly for a while. Then he said softly, "Sun Lang, is it really so difficult to create a pure and perfect flourishing era?" Sun Lang spread out his hands. "I have already said that with the empire's current size and scale, with the fruit of evil that has already bloomed in the hearts of the people, it is simply a fool's dream to hope that the rule of man can achieve a harmonious world." Bao Shiren stared straight at him. "Your method can be done?" Sun Lang shook his head. "I cannot guarantee it, because even back then, I did not see true hope. Everyone was fumbling. Everyone was making mistakes. It is just that." He was silent for a moment. His tone was unprecedentedly firm, as if he was telling an unshakable truth. "It is just that it will definitely be much better than what you are now." Sun Lang said softly, "The entire human race has shed blood for hundreds of years, walking towards the light in ignorance and sin. You will never be able to understand the history we have experienced, and you will never be able to imagine what our ancestors have won for us." Bao Shiren's eyes showed a blank look. He sighed softly. He and Sun Lang did not have the same political views. It had been like this for a long time. During the Great War of Tianyuan, they had quarreled many times. Sun Lang was an abominable public intellectual, while Bao Shiren was a hot-blooded Mao 5. Unfortunately, the enemy was too cunning. Every time, he was rendered speechless and unable to speak. Although he could not argue with Sun Lang, he was unwilling to give in. He had always believed in the peaceful and prosperous world described by the sages of the ancestors and recalled the rule of the ancient Holy King. However, Sun Lang, the traitor, had mercilessly destroyed his fantasy every time. He had even disgracefully claimed that the emperor was the key to hindering the progress of society. This kind of political view was simply appalling. For the righteous and forever loyal official Bao, it was completely unacceptable. If the country did not have a king to rule it, what would it be like? But now, his thoughts had begun to waver. He was really tired of it. When did he start to be tired of it? Why did he become tired of it? Perhaps it was because of the praise he had received. For years ago, he was the upright and plain-spoken Bao Qingtian who did not fear the nobles. 3 years ago, he was the unyielding Bao Qingtian. 2 years ago, he was the same. 1 year ago, he was the same. Now he was the same. In the eyes of the common people, he had always been the righteous lord who made decisions for the people. But why was it that every year there were nobles who bullied the common people who wanted him to be upright and plain-spoken? Why was it that every year there were tyrannical and overbearing princes who wanted him to teach them a lesson? No matter how many common people he protected, no matter how many playboys he taught a lesson to, there were always new lawless bastards who walked into the capital government. The common people needed a clear sky to uphold justice. The nobles could unscrupulously bully the common people. Some things had never changed. He did not understand the root of these unjust matters. Even if he understood, he could not change it. He could only passively protect the common people and fulfill his conscience and justice. But now he was tired of it. Perhaps he had lost faith in the current emperor. The battle of the great desolate mountain was filled with all kinds of mysteries. Sun Lang had vanished without a trace overnight. For the past 2 years, he had been searching everywhere, constantly submitting memorials, but each and every time, it had sunk like a stone into the sea. The dignified capital magistrate had hit a wall everywhere in the imperial capital. It was as if there was an invisible hand that was erasing all traces of Sun Lang, but he had no way to do anything. The loyalty of an official did not allow him to question the emperor, but he could not deceive his own heart. Also, Wu Hui's mournful and helpless roar and accusation was the last straw that broke the camel's back. It caused the tottering balance to tilt in the opposite direction. He smiled bitterly. If I had known this would happen, I would have continued to be a bailiff. Sun Lang replied, I said long ago that you should not have gotten involved in this matter. At this moment, the eunuch who had entered the palace to report hurriedly returned. General, Lord Bao, His Majesty summons the two of you for an audience. Please follow this servant. Sun Lang's spirits were roused. He smiled and said, His Majesty is quite straightforward this time. Has he decided to smash a broken jar? Bao Shiren clenched his fists and said nothing. The imperial guards let them pass. The eunuch led the way. Sun Lang and Bao Shiren walked side by side. They passed through the vast square and walked up the long flight of stairs. The capital governor was silent the entire time. Sun Lang transmitted his voice. Do you remember what I told you? I'll be the one attacking. You'll be the support. Bao Shiren nodded absent-mindedly. Sun Lang frowned and glanced at him. He felt that there was something wrong with this fellow's mental state. But since they had already come this far, there was no point in trying to enlighten him. He could only take one step at a time. But it didn't matter. Sun Lang's hand slid down to his waist. The general's martial uniform was very large and could hide things. When he went to court, he always carried 4 cans of herring in case he needed them. As long as he had these things, no matter how thorny the situation was, he could turn it into a mess. With the cans in his hand, he didn't panic. Speaking of which, it had been a long time since he had used this kind of biochemical tactical weapon. Even for General Sun's magnificent life, the two things of using canned herring in court and treating His Majesty to canned herring were still enough to become extremely important life achievements. Once they were done, he could brag about them for the rest of his life. Even if he was 70 or 80 years old, he could still vigorously slap his armchair in front of 20 or 30 grandchildren. His white beard fluttered, and his eyebrows danced with exultation as he spoke about these things in a loud voice. Shouldn't say General Sun Lang's mind was filled with extremely rebellious thoughts. But he quickly came back to his senses. Wait, hey, where are we going? Bao Shiren, who had a lot on his mind, also came back to his senses. He looked around and frowned. This doesn't seem to be the way to Yuji Hall or Golden Hall. The eunuch walking in front lowered his eyes and said submissively, in reply to the general, His Majesty has ordered me to bring you and Sir Bao to the Imperial Garden. I am responsible for bringing you to the middle gate. There will be an eunuch guiding you there. Sun Lang stopped and said seriously, Wait, the Imperial Garden is the place where the Emperor and his concubines have sex. It is a forbidden area of the royal family. How can it be used to summon foreign officials? The eunuch said in a low voice, I don't know, Sun Lang said with a disdainful expression. F***CK. Could it be some despicable and shameless scoundrel who wants to frame me? Tell me the truth. I have read a lot. I know about Lin Chong entering White Tiger Hall. The eunuch was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. He immediately knelt on the ground. General, please understand. Even if I had the guts, I would not dare to do such a thing. It is indeed His Majesty's order. He said that he wanted to entertain the two of you in the Imperial Garden. He also said that if the general wants to come, it is just right. Please come with me? Just right? Sun Lang frowned. What do you mean? How would the eunuch know? He just kept trembling. Bao Shiren could not stand it anymore. He reached out and helped the eunuch up. Then he glared at Sun Lang. Why do you only care about making things difficult for him? Even if it is a dragon's pool or a tiger's den, would you still be afraid? Sun Lang clicked his tongue. That may be the case, but this matter is really strange. Bao Haizi shook his head and said gently to the eunuch, Please lead the way. Don't be afraid. The Imperial Garden was already in the inner palace. It was considered the emperor's private territory. According to common sense, foreign officials were not allowed to enter the inner palace, let alone the Imperial Garden, unless they were extremely favored officials, or if there was an extremely special matter. Obviously, these two situations did not match. The two of them arrived at the gate of the Imperial Palace and handed over their tokens. An eunuch was waiting to lead the way. After receiving the two of them, the eunuch explained the matter of meeting the emperor and the taboos in the palace according to the rules. However, he was choked back by Sun Lang before he could say anything. They did not speak for the rest of the journey. They went deep into the inner palace, passed through the gate, and arrived at the Imperial Garden. Amidst the chirping of birds and the fragrance of flowers, a melodious and pleasant sound of a zither could be heard. Hearing the sound of the zither, Sun Lang's expression suddenly changed. Chapter 988. Ever since he stepped into the inner palace, Bao Shiren had been secretly paying attention to Sun Lang. This was because he felt a little guilty. Being summoned to the Imperial Garden by the Emperor as a foreign subject was a vast and mighty favor from the Emperor. Which subject would not tremble in fear and be not careful? However, Sun Lang walked with his head held high and looked around. He met a group of palace maids who stared at him from head to toe and clicked their tongues. When he met an Imperial concubine's guard of honor, he directly grabbed the eunuch who led the way and asked, Which of the Emperor's women is this? He was simply too arrogant and savage. Just based on his appearance as a Soviet soldier entering the Winter Palace, he was afraid that something would happen if he did not keep an eye on him. Thus, Bao Shiren broke out in a cold sweat along the way, as if he was walking with a barrel of explosives that was about to explode. However, after entering the Imperial Garden, he found that Sun Lang's expression had changed. Previously, he had always looked like he was going to a brothel, but now he had become serious. However, there was no change in the surroundings. Only the melodious sound of a zither drifted over. His heart skipped a beat, and he asked, Do you know the person playing the zither? Sun Lang's face was cold, and he did not answer. He walked past the eunuch who led the way and took a few steps forward. He coldly asked the guard in front of the Imperial Garden, Let me ask you, other than the emperor, who else is inside? The guards deep in the palace were not as well informed as the guards of the palace gates. Even if Sun Lang was wearing a first-rank martial robe, they did not take him seriously. This was the forbidden area of the inner palace, the residence of the emperor. How could they allow a foreign subject to be impudent here? The guard shouted. This is an important place in the imperial palace. Do not make a racket. Sun Lang slapped the guard in the face with the back of his hand and sent him flying. The guard on the other side was shocked. Just as he was about to draw his sword to warn the guard, he was knocked unconscious by a punch. He acted so quickly that Bao Shiren didn't even have time to react. Seeing Sun Lang act, he rushed forward in shock and held Sun Lang down. You're crazy. Sun Lang's shoulders sank and shook, pushing Bao Shiren's hand to the side. The sound of the zither in the imperial garden was slightly disrupted. Sun Lang was silent for a moment, and then a cold smile appeared on his face as he strode into the garden. The imperial garden was a royal garden. It was a place where the emperor, his concubines and concubines played and rested. It was located in the inner palace and was already heavily guarded. Furthermore, His Majesty had brought the imperial guards with him here. The imperial guards were hidden in the dark, and experts were on standby. The security work was done to the extreme. As soon as Sun Lang entered the garden, a melodious whistle sounded. Behind the rockery and among the thick branches, strong figures appeared one after another. Sun Lang looked around disdainfully, as if he was looking at a pile of trash. He didn't stop and continued to walk forward. He said, "Do you think the land in the imperial garden is not fertile enough?" Bao Shiren followed behind him in big strides. He was anxious and angry. What happened? Stop right there. At this moment, a golden crown came out from behind the pavilion. The emperor of the empire slowly walked over under the protection of the eunuchs. Swords drawn. What are you doing? Why aren't you leaving yet? Bao Shiren strictly followed the etiquette of a ruler and immediately bowed. Greetings, your majesty. Before the eunuchs could do anything, Sun Lang said coldly, "Don't pretend to be the good cop. Let me ask you, why did you want to meet us in the imperial garden? Who is the person playing the zither inside?" These words would be offensive in any dynasty. Even the domineering and powerful heroes in the history books had to have the most basic respect for the ruler. How could he be so impolite? The eunuchs were surprised at first, but then they were all angry. A thin eunuch beside the emperor stepped forward and shouted in a sharp voice, "How dare you? Sun Lang, you hurt the imperial guards, trespassed in the imperial garden, and were rude in front of the emperor. Why don't you apologize to His Majesty?" Sun Lang looked at him with eyes as sharp as a knife. "I'm talking to your master. Who are you to jump up and down with your father's power? I am a general of the imperial court and the #1 military merit of Tianyuan. How dare a ball-less trash like you order me around? Get out of my way." The eunuch usually had a lot of support in the palace and had a lot of connections in the imperial court. When had he ever been shouted at and looked down upon like this? Moreover, there was no turning back. He had already stood up. If he retreated now, what would the emperor think of him? Therefore, he could only hold on until the end. Whether he could stay in the emperor's heart depended on this. He stepped forward and said sternly, "How dare you? I am indeed a dog-like person, but you have to look at the master before beating a dog. You use your military merit to talk nonsense to me. It doesn't matter if I am humiliated, but I am the emperor's dog. You humiliate me, which means you don't put the emperor in your eyes. Your glory, wealth, and power were all given by the emperor. How dare you show your face in front of the emperor? Aren't you afraid of being criticized?" Sun Lang sighed. "Save some face for yourself. Otherwise, I will teach you a lesson." The eunuch became more and more agitated because the emperor didn't say a word. He felt that the emperor was looking at his back. He felt that the emperor was praising his actions. Yes, this was the imperial garden, a forbidden area in the imperial palace. Sun Lang dared to hit a few guards, but did he dare to do it in front of the emperor? If he gambled this time, he could stay in the emperor's heart and receive the emperor's favor. Opportunities were for those who dared to fight. Thus, he laughed coldly. "Face? What I need face for? Memory? My memory is not very good. I only remember to be loyal to the emperor and swear loyalty to the emperor. I'm not like some ungrateful. Sun Lang had been silent the entire time. Only now did he slowly say, "You are thinking too much. What I just said was not for you. It was for your master." He raised his right foot slightly, paused, and charged forward. In an instant, his speed was faster than the wind, but his momentum was like a mountain. It was as if an ancient giant had woken up from a deep sleep. When he moved, he had an earth-shattering power. In front of the aces in the garden, General Shunsei charged forward like a sharp arrow. There were no wondrous moves, no strange martial arts that could change the color of the wind and clouds. Just this swift and fierce collision was an invincible ultimate technique. Hurricanes and rushing thunder were not things that human strength could match. In an instant, the internal guards blocking in front of Sun Lang were already swaying left and right. These internal secret guards with the most extraordinary martial arts were not even able to slow down the other party's footsteps at all. The distance between Sun Lang and the Emperor was only 30 steps. In an instant, Sun Lang had already approached the Emperor of the world. His eyes met the other party's. General Shen's eyes shone with the blood and coldness of the great barren mountain, reflecting the cold, murderous intent into the other party's soul. With one palm, the leader of the internal guards, Meiroazo, who was attacking from the side, staggered back. With one push, the imperial army that was attacking from all directions flew up into the sky. Various rainbow lights dissipated into nothingness. With one grab, the eunuch who had been talking nonsense before was already in his hands. With one retreat, General Shansei had been staring into the emperor's eyes from beginning to end. The internal eunuchs, who did not have time to react, only saw Sun Lang charge and return. He had already grabbed eunuch Wang Jun and floated back. They heard the crisp sound of bones breaking in succession and eunuch Wang's mournful scream. They saw a figure flash, and Sun Lang had already returned to his original position. His movements were like a ghost. It was as if he had reached out and grabbed eunuch Wang, who was 30 steps away, in his hands. Eunuch Wang, who had just been speaking eloquently, was now like a dead dog in Sun Lang's hands. His limbs were strangely twisted, and he gave out a mournful scream. This was the Imperial Garden. This was in front of the Emperor. So what had happened? More people could not believe their eyes. They felt that they were hallucinating. What had happened in front of their eyes was something they could not believe. In an internal palace, even in front of the Emperor, surrounded by countless internal guards, what had this person done? It was not a hallucination. It was something that had really happened. It could not be described as treason. Shock and anger exploded at the same time. The internal guards were swallowed by endless fury. They raised their weapons in unison, even ignoring the huge difference in combat strength between them. This kind of behavior was a provocation to the Emperor's authority and also a provocation to everyone's dignity. They wanted to punish this traitor who had deceived the Emperor. The enraged people vented their anger and shock with words. "How dare you? Let go of eunuch Wang. Kneel, surrender, or else crack." There was a crisp sound of an explosion. It was like a switch shutting off the boiling noise. An unbelievable scene happened in front of their eyes again. It even made the angriest people speechless. They even lost the ability to speak. Their minds were blank. His head, eunuch Wang's head, it was twisted in a circle. The sound of the neck breaking was very crisp. His body fell to the ground at the feet of the murderer. His body was lying on the ground, but his head was facing the sky. His wide eyes had lost the luster of life, but there was still fear and regret. Murder, murder. The traitor who had committed murder in front of the Emperor and captured eunuch Wang Jun did not demonstrate his power, did not negotiate, and did not listen to eunuch Wang's pleas for mercy. Amidst the enmity and shouts of the courtyard, he simply twisted eunuch Wang's neck and threw him to the ground like a dead dog. The person who had spoken so vehemently before, a living person, a person who was popular in the palace. He was dead. In front of the Emperor, he was dead. This sudden scene caused everyone to open their mouths wide. They were like ducks that had their throats pinched, unable to say anything. They didn't know what to say. Their poor brains couldn't even think of a word that could describe and evaluate this kind of action. They couldn't even think of a suitable accusation. But after all, they were internal guards and well-trained royal guards. Even if they were so shocked, they quickly regained their senses. The guards, who shared a common hatred of the enemy, were just about to continue performing their duties when they saw Sun Lang nonchalantly raise his foot. Crack! Poof! White, red, fluid, and liquid things sprayed out in a radioactive manner. They splashed onto the smooth and clean stone floor very, very far away. Eunuch Wang's head had been flattened, but that person's expression was still calm, as if he had just stepped on an ant. His indifferent gaze looked around. Everyone's hair stood on end. Many people could not help but look at the ground. A moment ago, Wang Zhan's head had been twisted half a circle and was blankly looking up at the sky. The next moment, his face had been flattened by a foot. This visual impact, combined with the current situation, was the source of fear. Even if most of the people here had been internal guards and were proficient in various interrogation techniques, they had seen countless tragic scenes and had even personally tortured many prisoners on death row. After seeing the scene with their own eyes, their stomachs still churned and they almost vomited. As internal guards, they were the emperor's claws and teeth. They were the dogs that monitored the officials and the killers that made the Jianghu people tremble in fear. Before this, they had never thought that there would be a moment when they would be so terrified. And it was in the royal palace, in front of the emperor. They even had a crazy and terrifying thought. If his target was not Wang Zhan, but the emperor, then if they used all the aces in the royal palace, would they be able to stop him? Sun Lang slowly pulled back his foot and wiped the top of his shoe on the ground. The liquid and fluid on the bottom of his shoe were wiped on the stone floor, leaving streaks of wet marks. Wang Zhan's body was still twitching slightly. His broken neck spurted out bursts of blood like a fountain of blood. It dyed the fragrant royal garden with a terrifying aura and made people involuntarily shift their gaze away. He said calmly, "Your Majesty, have you learned your lesson?" The emperor was as silent as a statue, but his eyes were changing intensely. When the emperor was angry, millions of corpses would fall and blood would flow for thousands of miles. It was enough to make the world tremble. But Sun Lang just looked at him quietly. The leader of the internal guards had fought with Sun Lang before and did not gain any advantage. He stood aside and was on guard. But he secretly gave his assistant a look. The message was passed down layer by layer. The internal guards had their own secret communication method. Soon, the person in charge of the internal guards who was guarding the outermost area received the message, summoned the royal guards. At this moment, Sun Lang said calmly, "They have gone to summon the royal guards. Are you ready?" The calm words were like thunder that exploded in many people's ears. The internal guards were on guard. Mei Ruozuo's expression changed. The emperor's eyes were intertwined with cold, killing intent and viciousness. He said coldly, Sun Lang said, "You asked for it. I originally planned to meet you at Yuji Hall with Bao Heizi, to have a war of words with you, to fool you, to brag, to secretly mock you, to laugh at you. I didn't expect you to play this game with me. Who else can you blame? Don't quibble with me. It's too boring. You summoned Bao Shiren in the Imperial Garden and said it was good that I came. What are you planning? Do you want me to say it clearly?" The emperor's gaze became increasingly gloomy. He clenched his fists. One could imagine the degree of anger surging in his heart. However, as the emperor, he held power that ordinary people could not imagine. Naturally, he could endure things that ordinary people could not. He slowly said, "Everyone withdraw." The internal guards could not help but hesitate. Sun Lang said sarcastically, "What are you hesitating for? You know what's the use of staying here? Get out of here. Close your mouth and empty your head. Take the body away and come back to clean it up. This eunuch is called Wang Zhan, right? Mei Ruozuo, go back and clean up the mess. You internal guards are good at this." After he finished, he looked around and said, "What are you looking at? Believe it or not, if I say a few more words, all of you will be killed by the emperor." Chapter 989. Outside the royal garden, it was impenetrable. The internal guards surrounded the royal garden layer by layer. Due to various considerations, the imperial guards did not mobilize. What had just happened became a top secret. Only the undercurrents in the royal palace were turbulent. The Grand Masters who had been protecting the royal family for decades, hidden in the depths of the Forbidden Palace, had quietly arrived. Bao Shiren stood outside the garden. There was not a single person within 30 feet of him. He had not been interrogated, nor had he been detained. But from time to time, there were eyes that swept over him. It was clear that he had been treated as Sun Lang's accomplice by the inner guards, but right now, he was not in the mood to care about such a small matter. His brain was still in a daze. He believed that the internal guards who were watching him had the same feeling. They were shocked, confused, helpless, and scared. Because not long ago, something terrible had happened in front of everyone. Hutta Kingdom was a warrior. Martial arts were prosperous and grandmasters were born in large numbers. But the realm where one could fight against a country and make the nobles helpless only existed in myths and legends. A country was a violent collective. The king was the master of this collective violence. No matter how good one's martial arts were, it was difficult to fight against thousands of soldiers and horses. In front of the imperial court, the power of one person was too small. The imperial court was the largest sect and the most powerful family in the empire. They used to think so, but what had just happened overturned their imagination. The Hutta Empire's national power reigned supreme over the present age. She had millions of soldiers and thousands of good generals. Her brilliant martial arts that ended the chaos of the Tianyuan era were glorious for all eternity. It was enough to be passed down endlessly by future generations. However, in this prosperous and powerful era, in the most glorious imperial city of the mortal world, a person twisted the neck of the emperor's favorite minister in front of him and stomped on his head. What he stepped on was not Wang Zhen's corpse, but the face of the country. Such a great rebellion, so rampant, so domineering. Even if one looked through the history books, it would be difficult to find a crime that would make one's hair stand on end. It was enough to make all the people in the world attack him. But even so, the emperor did not give the order to punish the thief. Why? The internal guards couldn't figure it out, and neither could Bao Shiren. This was an era where dignity and honor were more important than life. Generously dying was a righteous act, and dragging out an ignoble existence was a cowardly act. No matter how strong Sun Lang was, or how arrogant he was, as the son of heaven, he could not back down even a little bit. This was because he was the ruler of the empire, the emperor of his subjects, and he represented the dignity and courage of this country. For example, in the past, the Sky Demon had come with a menacing aura. He had attacked the city with irresistible force and was a terrifying enemy. However, the empire still did not yield an inch. Instead, the entire empire rose to fight against him. Today was supposed to be like the past. But why? Bao Shiren's gaze was incomparably deep. He gazed motionlessly in the direction of the imperial garden. Sun Lang and the emperor were left there alone. No, there was also a person playing the guqin. That person playing the guqin, who was it? Bao Shiren clearly remembered that before coming to the imperial garden, Sun Lang was still smiling and relaxed. Who knew that after hearing the sound of the guqin, he would act out of character and violently hurt people. The identity of the person playing the guqin must be very important. Bao Shiren was thinking when he suddenly felt something. He looked back and saw the crowd parting. A eunuch with an angry and anxious expression hurried over. The capital governor was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, "Eunuch Feng." After Feng Yongting came closer, he lowered his voice and shouted, "What is going on? What is Sun Lang doing now? Is he prepared to never make a comeback?" Bao Shiren smiled bitterly and said, "I don't know." Feng Yongting paced back and forth a few times, anxiously looking at the imperial garden. He then stomped his feet and said, "He was still calm this morning. What happened?" Bao Shiren's heart skipped a beat. He took a deep breath and said softly, "I might know a thing or two." Feng Yongting raised his head and said, "What?" Lord Bao looked at the imperial garden and said slowly, "Someone is playing the guqin inside." After Sun Lang heard the sound of the guqin, He became crazy. The person playing the guqin is the key. Eunuch Feng's expression suddenly changed. He then sighed sadly. His sighs seemed to contain many things. Loneliness, sadness, pity, and some unspeakable reluctance. "What a sin?" Bao Shiren asked. "Eunuch Feng, please tell us the reason." Feng Yongting hesitated for a moment, then took Lord Bao's hand and wrote 2 words on his palm. Pingyang. In the imperial garden, the emperor of the empire and the rebellious minister stood silently. The entire garden had been evacuated, except for one musician. The sound of the guqin was endless. Sun Lang broke into the garden, and the sound of the guqin was slightly chaotic. Sun Lang killed Wang Zhen, and the sound of the guqin was chaotic. Sun Lang shouted orders, and the sound of the guqin was melancholic. The sound of the guqin, which had not stopped, was stubbornly and sadly showing her attitude. No matter what happened, she would be here. She would be watching. Sun Lang said lightly, "I still underestimated your bottom line." The emperor said calmly, "A person in power must have a heart that is free of all taboos. This dangerous world has hardened my heart. This is the curse of being born in a royal family. I lived a life of luxury and enjoyed endless glory and wealth, but every step I took was dangerous. I did not dare to trust anyone. You will never know what I have experienced." Sun Lang said, "So you have become the person you once hated. You let your children repeat the suffering you have endured. I can't imagine what you have experienced, and you also don't know what I have seen. Our fathers and ancestors suffered a lot so that we don't have to repeat their sorrow. So you don't deserve to be a father. You don't even deserve to be a human. You are just a crazy man, a wretched creature blinded by desire. That's all." The emperor said lightly, "It looks like 8 years of time is not enough for you to be reborn. You are still as naive and childish as before, unwilling to face the nature of the world." Sun Lang shook his head. "It is the exact opposite. I was once disappointed in humanity, but someone changed my way of thinking, allowing me to still have faith in this world after my illusions were shattered. This is the reason I'm standing here talking to you. I'm afraid you will never understand this kind of thing. So pitiful. However, what is even more pitiful is that even though you scoff at my words, you have no choice but to stand here and listen to me seriously." He turned his head and looked at the emperor who was close by. He said calmly, "You must be very afraid in your heart." The emperor's expression became very ugly. But very quickly, he laughed strangely. "Then what about you?" Sun Lang sighed. "I'm just angry at your cold-bloodedness and heartlessness." The emperor said lightly, "In the end, she is still my daughter. She has been loyal to her father and fulfilled her filial piety. I am her biological father. I gave her life and let her live a life of luxury from a young age. It is only right for her to repay me. Moreover, I am doing this for her own good. I want to find a good home for her." The emperor of the empire looked at Sun Lang and revealed a cold smile. "I will bestow her to you. Do you dare to take it?" The sound of the zither suddenly changed a tune and then came to an abrupt stop. Before Sun Lang could say anything, a strange yet familiar figure flashed out. After not seeing her for a few years, she seemed to have grown taller. The immaturity of the past had also disappeared. However, the temperament between her eyebrows was the same as before. She was wearing a beautiful palace dress and a luxurious cloak. However, with the same dressing and the same beautiful glory, Empress Tensei was full of heroic spirit, while she looked weak, unconfident, and submissive. She always lived in the shadow of her elder sister. But now, she mustered up her courage and refused. "Father, please don't do this." The emperor's cold gaze swept over. "Impudent, do you have the right to speak?" When the girl, who looked similar to Empress but had a different temperament, heard the reprimand, she could not help but show fear on her face. Even her body trembled. Most of the courage she mustered dissipated. Under the gaze of her godlike father, she quickly lost the courage to speak and lowered her head sadly. The emperor was about to reprimand her again when he heard Sun Lang say lightly, "Hey, watch your words." Her identity is not only your daughter. According to the laws of the Empire, the 7 luminary swordmaster is crowned as the national sword saint. In theory, he has the same rank as the prince. Even the emperor has to give him the corresponding treatment. I have to advise you as the general of the empire. Your Majesty, please be more polite to the national sword saint. Princess Pingyang hurriedly raised her head and looked at Sun Lang. Her expression was sad and guilty. She whispered, "Master, I am sorry." The emperor said coldly, "She is not now." Sun Lang nodded. "I see. It makes sense. After all, you have never trusted this daughter. Especially after I came back. You were even more worried that she would be used by me and give you a hard time. So, you decided to take the initiative and use her to use me. I have to say, when it comes to being a father, Qiuyu Shao-san is better than you." The emperor looked at his daughter. There was no affection or warmth in his eyes. He slowly said, "The most ruthless royal family. This is not wrong. I have abandoned my brotherly love. I have seen my brothers who grew up with me as enemies. I have gone through untold hardships to get to the throne. For the throne, I can disregard my family. I can even kill my parents. So what if I have as many children as I want? I'm using Pingyang. This is true. I do not trust Pingyang. This is also true. I am the emperor. Naturally, I will not trust anyone. Otherwise, why would the emperor be alone?" He said these words in front of Sun Lang and his daughter in a dignified manner. Then he asked, "You said that I do not trust my daughter. What about you? Do you trust her?" The emperor of the empire said coldly, "The battle in the Great Barren Mountain was chaotic. I was far away in the imperial capital. I could only observe the battle through the astrolabe of the imperial astronomer. I saw that my most elite troops were all killed. The battlefield in the Great Barren Mountain was cleaned up for nearly a month. There were countless casualties and very few survivors. Only your body was not seen. You only left a half-dead holy sword. I had no choice but to let Pingyang play this show. As the luminous sword saint, she wiped out the remnants of the sky demon and established the final result of the battle in the Great Barren Mountain. These 2 years, she's been in the Star Sword Palace, nurturing the devil ancestor who was seriously injured by you and was in a deep sleep. Until a few months ago, when you pulled the thunder bow and the sword energy swept across the world, the devil ancestor sensed it and woke up. Now you have returned to the imperial capital to settle old scores. If Pingyang continues to be the luminous sword saint, she may be exposed by you one day, and the imperial family will fall into a great passive position. So I simply let her return to the palace and continue to be her princess Pingyang and fulfill her duties as a member of the imperial family." The emperor said, and then asked, "What about you? I want to give her to you. I want to send her to your side. Do you trust her? She has a weak temperament. She took you as her teacher in the early years and has grown a lot. In her mind, you as her teacher may be closer to her than her parents. But now, do you still trust her?" Ignoring his pale and trembling daughter, the emperor continued, "Do you trust her as always? Will you accept her? Bring her back to your home and let her get along with the people you care about. A woman who has been with the Earth's sacred sword for more than 2 years. A woman who has even communicated with the awakened ancestor, the devil, for a long time. Even if she is your beloved disciple, won't you have the slightest doubt? Do you trust her? Or do you throw her aside, let her stay in the palace, and let her be in danger? You're so irritable today. That's the root of the problem, right? You realize my plan, but you fell into a dilemma. That's why you were so angry that you even killed someone to vent your anger. You humiliated me in front of everyone and disgraced me. But no matter how loud you shout, can you get past this? I said that 8 years is not enough for you to be reborn. You are still a weak person from a foreign land. You are naive, childish, and can't be ruthless. If others treat you sincerely, you have to repay them. If you don't learn to be ungrateful, cold-blooded, and heartless, why are you playing with me?" He said in a Sunran tone, "I might as well say it out loud. I am playing an open conspiracy with you. I am using my daughter. At least I can put you in a dilemma. How about it? I give this daughter to you. Do you dare to take her back? Don't look at how well-behaved she is now. Maybe one day, her mind will be usurped, and she will do something that you will regret for the rest of your life. I want to place this spy by your side. What will you choose? Despicable people use despicableness as a passport. They obliterated family and used their own flesh and blood as a cold bargaining chip and a tool for confrontation. Princess Pingyang was trembling all the time. Her face was pale, and her lips had lost their color. She was like a trembling little quail. She was originally an introverted and weak child, but she was involved in a fate that she could not bear, just like Sun Lang in the past. The emperor, who had a heart of stone, shouted, "How about it, Sun Lang? Have you thought it through? I have already prepared the carriage. Originally, I wanted to bestow Pingyang to Bao Shiren to test him and at the same time find some trouble for you. Now that you have made such a scene today, I might as well directly benefit you. What are you going to do?" Sun Lang raised his hand and grabbed the emperor. "What am I going to do? Damn it, I will beat you up first." Chapter 990. Within 10 steps, Sun Lang could kill anyone in the world. Beating someone was much easier than killing someone. If the target was a man, the emperor was a man and an old man. Then let's F***king fight. In the blink of an eye, Sun Lang approached like a ghost and grabbed the emperor's shoulder. Hutu valued martial arts, so the emperor had to be able to fight as well. The treasures in the royal treasury, the secret manuals accumulated over hundreds of years, and the teachings and guidance of the world's grandmasters could be used to create a powerful and skilled martial artist. However, this was just for show. It couldn't win against a real man. It could only bully the weak and rely on the suppression of the level to bully the weak. But for the emperor, this was enough. The country didn't need the emperor to fight in person. The purpose of practicing martial arts was to strengthen the body and show off in front of the barbarians of other countries. Also, it was a cat that could hide with Jingke for a while in the case of assassination. However, the emperor, who used the above as the guidance for his practice, couldn't deal with the current situation. He saw Sun Lang raise his hand to grab him. He subconsciously swung his palm to cut the opponent's right wrist. The move seemed soft, but was actually hard. It was an extremely good grappling technique. Whether it was the move or the internal strength, it was just right. However, his opponent was Sun Lang. The divine strategist general did not care about the changes in his moves. His right hand twisted and grabbed like a tiger's claw, grabbing the emperor's pulse. Before the emperor could decide whether he should save the emperor or use his internal energy to attack, Sun Lang had already kicked out, hitting the emperor's lower abdomen. The emperor groaned in pain, the internal energy he had gathered immediately dissipating. Then, he was hit in the face with another punch. Just as he was seeing stars, Sun Lang followed up with a push. A force that could topple mountains and overturn seas swept up the emperor, whose internal energy could not continue, and pushed him to the ground. Not bad. Sun Lang strode forward, grabbed the emperor's dragon robe, and punched him again. Compared to the emperor, who only had looks, Sun Lang's martial arts had already reached the stage where he could freely control his punches. Even if he punched the face, there was no bruise at all. But only the emperor himself knew the feeling of pain that seeped into his bones. Princess Pingyang was shocked and stepped forward subconsciously. "Master!" Sun Lang turned around and glared at her fiercely. "Your master and your father are fighting. You shouldn't help either side. Don't disturb the fair fight between us." Princess Royal Highness couldn't help but stop in her tracks. Her eyes were filled with tears, and she looked like she was about to cry. She wasn't good at making decisions in the first place. Not to mention, this was a dilemma. Not only was she afraid of her father, but she also felt guilty towards her master. What was happening in front of her eyes was a grudge between her father and her master. Sun Lang snorted coldly and punched down like raindrops. "I've been F***king tolerating you for a long time." The emperor flew into a rage. He felt both ashamed and angry. Even an ordinary person would not be able to endure being pressed down and beaten, let alone the emperor of the Earth Empress who ruled over the world. He roared, "Guards!" Sun Lang laughed strangely. "Go ahead and shout. No one will come even if you shout until your throat is broken." How about it? I just want to beat you. Aren't you the emperor? Aren't you very capable? If you have the ability, let the imperial guards come and suppress me. If you have the ability, announce that I'm a traitor. He pulled the emperor up, patted his face, and smiled. Do you dare? Are you willing? Are you willing to risk everything? Don't you still have to continue to endure? A little impatience will spoil great plans, right? As a former prince, you must know how to endure, right? In order to become the emperor, you must have endured a lot of pain and humiliation. Now that you're the emperor, you're still enduring in front of me. What are you trying to do? The emperor struggled violently at first, but when he heard this, he slowly stopped. He looked at Sun Lang and suddenly laughed. His laughter was full of coldness. He said with a smile, "Yes, you're right. A little impatience will spoil great plans. You were unscrupulous in the court. You talked nonsense in front of the Imperial Ancestral Temple. You made a scene at the Copper Sparrow Terrace. You held my son up and pressed him against the gate of the Imperial City, and you killed a eunuch that I doted on very much in front of me. What you did made me suffer humiliation and made a fool of myself in front of all the officials. Our authority has been questioned, and our strength has been underestimated. We can even endure such humiliation. So what does a mere physical pain count as?" The emperor looked at Sun Lang with a cold smile. "Even if you punch me 100 times, you won't dare to leave a scar on my face or an internal injury that can't be healed. You also have your concerns, so why are you so arrogant here? It's just a few punches, what do I have to fear? You're right about one thing. Before I became the crown prince, I endured who knows how much humiliation. The previous emperor left me a much deeper lesson than you. What's the big deal about this little trick of yours?" Sun Lang hit him a few more times. The emperor could only grit his teeth and laugh coldly. This old thing was right. Although Sun Lang was very happy to hit him, it was not good to be heavy-handed. Not to mention using heavy-handed techniques to shake his internal organs and cause him to die suddenly within 3 months. Even if he hit him until his nose was black and his face was swollen, there would be no small amount of trouble afterwards. After all, the essence of politics was concealment. No matter how ugly the matter was, as long as it wasn't brought to the surface, everyone would pretend not to see it. If you stole the emperor's power, you could refute the emperor's face. If you fought openly and secretly with the emperor, everyone would welcome it. But if you beat the emperor into a pig's head, that would be too ugly. Everyone would think you were too arrogant and ignorant. Almost the same logic. Sun Lang also couldn't kick the emperor's balls. In the end, he was testing the emperor back and forth on the edge of exploding. The emperor's goal was the eternal stability of the country. The emperor's ambition was to live forever. These two desires surpassed everything. In order to realize this great dream, the emperor would compromise, endure, and even lower his bottom line again and again, as long as he didn't push him too far. But looking at him like a dead pig that wasn't afraid of boiling water, it was really infuriating. Sun Lang had a belly full of anger. Even if he beat the emperor, he didn't vent much of it. Seeing Li Guanyuan put on such an arrogant look, he was really angry from the bottom of his heart. This man, if he was angry, he could really do anything. The so-called bottom line that he usually adhered to would no longer exist, let alone this kind of sinister, selfish, decadent, and backward feudal emperor. It was reasonable and legal to use any means to punish the other party. F***ck your mother. Are you very brave? Sun Lang's eyes flashed with a strong red light. The power of the seal dissipated, and the isolated sacred fire sword reconnected with his body. The power of confusion emerged from his body. Old pervert, feel the fear that your daughter has experienced. Sun Lang, whose mind was filled with anger, cast a righteous heavenly punishment on the emperor, who fell to the ground. Yes, with the power of water and fire, his special skill for women had evolved into a special skill for humans. Wait, there are still eunuchs in this world. That's right, do eunuchs like this? I forgot to let Feng Yongting try it earlier. F***ck, what am I thinking? Thinking of this, Sun Lang couldn't help but feel a little regretful. He seemed to have opened Pandora's box. Presumably, when President Truman signed the agreement to plant a few mushrooms in Japan in 1945, he most likely had some subtle feelings like this. But his hand was already pressed on the emperor's chest. Based on his past experience, no matter if it was the power of vitality on a woman or the power of vitality on a man, the other party would immediately show an uncontrollable fear. Then their heart would beat faster, their faces would turn red, they would make strange cries, and their bodies would tremble like an old salted fish. With a subtle mood, he quietly waited for the follow-up development of the matter. For a moment, he even had a feeling of returning to Earth. That kind of mood was like watching a new movie every time after it was released. He knew that he had to go to the bathroom to wash his eyes every time he finished watching it, but he couldn't resist the impulse to seek novelty and the desire to court death. However, nothing happened. The emperor looked at him blankly. Sun Lang's posture was similar to Sakura Manji's posture when he was about to draw his sword. The power of confusion had lost its effect. Sun Lang blinked and suddenly reacted. His mind worked quickly, and in a moment he understood the profound meaning behind this matter. However, he didn't have time to think about it for the time being. The most important thing now was to cover it up. Fortunately, General Shin's acting skills were excellent, and he was smart enough. In a moment, he realized the seamless change of the script. He looked into the emperor's eyes and showed a ferocious smile. "Your Majesty, I'll treat you to something to eat." The power of confusion quietly retreated, and Sun Lang smoothly took out a yellow iron can from his waist. The emperor sneered. "You want to poison me?" Sun Lang shook his head and said, "Your Majesty, you have wronged me. I respect my status, so how could I do such an extreme thing? Besides, there is no strange poison in this world that the Empire can't cure unless the person who is poisoned is killed. Your Majesty is the Emperor of the Empire, and you are rich. How could I do such a useless thing?" The Emperor sneered. "It's good that you know." Then Sun Lang gently squeezed, and a crack appeared on the sealed seal of the can. He used his internal force to heat it up, and the molecular heat moved faster. The breath from the depths of hell gushed out, condensing into a ferocious ghost face in the air, and rushed toward the Emperor. The Emperor's expression, which was cold and stern just now, suddenly changed. As the Emperor of the Empire, he was rich. His food and clothes were the most luxurious in the world. Even a eunuch like Feng Yongting was so particular about taking a dump, let alone the most honorable emperor in the mortal world. He probably had never smelled the smell of an open-air public toilet in his life. It was simply inconceivable. The honorable emperor showed a frightened and shocked expression. He realized that he had underestimated Sun Lang's bottom line. He could endure Sun Lang's punches and kicks, but this kind of thing absolutely not. He said sternly, "Bastard, don't you dare." Sun Lang used his internal force to isolate the breath of hell. He smiled and said, "Your Majesty, don't be frightened. Your Majesty, don't be afraid. This thing is called canned herring. It's human food, not what you think it is. If you don't believe me, you could take a look. This is fish meat, white and white. It's a specialty of the fishermen in the far west. The locals love to eat it. If you like it." He smiled and slowly pushed the canned herring in his hand forward. The emperor struggled with all his might, but Sun Lang pressed on his chest and used his internal force to make him unable to move. Seeing the can of excrement approaching, the emperor's despair and helplessness were indescribable. He roared angrily, "Sun Lang, what you did today, I will not let you go." Sun Lang said with a smile, "Your Majesty, what nonsense are you spouting? We have long been irreconcilable. Your Majesty can't wait to kill me and be happy. You don't lack this matter," the emperor said sternly. "You humiliated me like this. I will not care about anything else." Sun Lang sighed and said, "Your Majesty, it's not that this great subject is looking down on you, but you've been the emperor for a long time. How can you have any courage to speak of? You're a cunning old fox. Didn't you say it very clearly before? If you can tolerate it, you will tolerate it. If Ju Chun treats you to canned food, you will only vomit for 2 days at most. There is no real loss, and no one knows about this. Are you going to fall out with Ju Chun over such a small matter? Are you going to abandon your country and your dreams? His expression was very gentle, like a kindergarten teacher coaxing children to eat. Come, open your mouth and eat it all. At most, your mouth will smell like shit. If you spill it on your body, everyone will think that you fell into a cesspool, the emperor roared. Pingyang, Pingyang. Princess Pingyang had been watching from the side. When Sun Lang took out the canned herring, she felt that it was not very appropriate. After all, that thing smelled too much. Fighting was one thing, but doing it this way was a little too. She gritted her teeth and quickly ran over. She reached out to hug Sun Lang. In any case, she had to drag her master up first. Then she shouted, "Master, please!" Sun Lang heard the whistling of the wind behind him. He held the canned herring with one hand and elbowed her with the other, intending to force this silly disciple back. As for the small matter of male and female contact, he did not care at all. This girl had been impersonating the Earth Radiant Sword Saint for 2 years. Naturally, she had an extremely strong sacred sword power. According to experience, she was naturally immune. What was there to be afraid of? Princess Pingyang's martial arts were not as good as Sun Lang's. Secondly, she did not want to fight with her master. As a result, she was easily pushed back by this elbow. Her whole body staggered back. Sun Lang also did not care about this matter. He wanted to continue tormenting the emperor, but suddenly he heard a strange sound coming from behind him. First, it was the sound of an object falling to the ground. Then, it was an uncontrollable, frightened moan. The former was probably a muffled sound of someone falling on their buttocks to the ground. And the latter, he couldn't be more familiar with it. Sun Lang shook his head like a lion. Princess Pingyang fell weakly to the ground. Her face was red, and her eyes were full of panic and surprise. When she noticed that Sun Lang was looking over, she immediately covered her face with her hands. "Master, what the hell?" Chapter 991. It had to be said that this turn of events was truly too coquettish. Even Sun Lang was caught off guard. He had originally thought that the emperor's abnormal behavior was already very thought-provoking. He hadn't expected an even more urgent curve to follow, almost spraining his old waist. First of all, the emperor, who theoretically should not be immune to the fire elemental power, was completely fine. Then, something happened to Princess Pingyang, who should have been immune to the great guardian of water. Sun Lang didn't need to look at it to determine that there was something fishy about this matter. He had been studying this problem for the past few months. From the reactions of Annie Lu, Xia Wei, Empress, Zhao Yunlong, and others, the mechanism of the Imperial Army power was like this. If the person who came into contact with it was a member of the Imperial Army, then they would have a certain degree of immunity to the power. The higher the quality of the Imperial Army, the greater the resistance. For example, Chao Patao could forcibly resist it with his tyrannical cultivation base. And if Empress activated the Tianyuan blade, the degree of immunity would be even higher than that of Chao Patao. And yet, regardless of their cultivation or the strength of the Imperial Army, all they could achieve was resistance and not immunity. Only those who were truly immune to the great preservation power were those who were truly on par with the 7 luminaries. Lu Shujin, Xia Wei, Shun Yaohua. These sword masters who possessed the power of the holy sword were immune to the provocation of the great protector power. They were completely fine under his touch. In that case, the current situation was very interesting. Why was the emperor immune to this power? The answer was simple. He had the power of the holy sword. Considering His Majesty's ambition and his unreliable collaborator, Sun Lang was almost certain that the devil ancestor had left something on the emperor of the empire. He just didn't know if the emperor was aware of all this. Putting this aside for now, there was an even more important discovery. Pingyang. Back then, Princess Pingyang had taken his place and pretended to be the sword saint of the Earthlight country. She had finally plugged the hole in the final battle of the Great Desolate Mountain and gave the world a more decent explanation. She had accompanied the sword of the star suppressing star day and night, So she must have been tainted by the aura of the divine sword and activated the power of the earth light to cultivate. Even if the devil had awakened and the emperor had stripped her of her identity as the sword saint, she should still have the power of the divine sword in her body. But she still had a physiological change that was hard to talk about. This was even more intriguing. At the very least, Sun Lang could confirm one thing. The devil didn't do anything to her. As Sun Lang thought of this, the knot in his heart suddenly became clear. The emperor was very accurate. His loss of self-control today did indeed come from the anger at the bottom of his heart, but it was more of a dilemma. He didn't want Ping Yang to stay in the cold royal palace to suffer the emperor's merciless malice, but he was very wary of the danger contained in this silly disciple's body. If the devil had left some secret means on her body, then this little girl, who couldn't even speak clearly, could lose control one day in the future. Just like Wu Hui's situation at the time. And it was even worse. He couldn't be inseparable from Ping Yang every day, and the emperor was not stupid enough to casually activate the restriction on Ping Yang's body. If the restriction was activated when the two sides were fighting fiercely and Sun Lang had no time to attend to other things, then Ping Yang would lose control and go on a killing spree. The consequences could be imagined. His martial arts were unparalleled in the world. Even if there were 10 Ping Yangs launching a sneak attack, it wouldn't be much. But what if it were other people? Other people who weren't on guard, the people he cared about. So he hesitated, because he had misgivings in his heart, because there were people he cared about more in his heart. Life had weight, and he had to make a choice. He couldn't let his emotions affect his decisions. But he still felt irritated and restless, especially Ping Yang's choice. When she heard that her father had the intention of giving her to him, this person, who had never had her own opinions and was deathly afraid of her father, actually summoned the courage to rush out and have the emperor take back the order. She was always like this, always thinking for others, and would rather sacrifice herself. But now, things seemed to have taken a turn for the better. A very interesting turn of events. Thinking of this, Sun Lang had an idea. Looking at Princess Ping Yang, who was sitting on the ground with a shy and embarrassed face, and covering her face, Sun Lang showed a serious expression. His eyes showed that he expected better from her, and he shouted, "Get up!" Hearing her master shout, Princess Ping Yang wished she could drill into a hole in the ground. She saw too many things from her master's eyes. Her master's eyes were as sharp as lightning, as if he could see through her body and soul. The other party's dignified eyes were no different from a moral and personality judgment. I don't remember teaching you to be such a perverted girl. Her Royal Highness was about to cry. She felt abnormally ashamed and even wanted to run away. Feeling all kinds of shameful changes in her body, her heart was filled with fear and shyness. This kind of nervous and frightened feeling was enough to make her faint, because just after fighting with her beloved master, she felt a very shameful change in her body. Clearly only used her palm to press against her master's elbow. Clearly only like this. Why? Why did I? At this moment, Princess Ping Yang's heart was filled with bewilderment, followed by embarrassment. She felt that her body had become naked, and all the changes were under her master's sharp gaze. Her master's eyes were like torches, and he was also a Casanova who traveled among the flowers, so he must have seen through it. How did I become so perverted? At this moment, Her Royal Highness's feelings were even more desperate than when she saw her mother cleaning out her room and found her casting materials and magic books. She felt the cruelty of the world, the emptiness of the world, and the necessity of its destruction. Her eyes were filled with tears, and tears could burst out at any time. Why did it become like this? It shouldn't be. Why did it become like this just by touching her master? Could it be that she missed her master too much these 2 years? Could it be because, when I did that kind of thing in the middle of the night, I thought of my master? Could it be because of this reason? I didn't do it very often. Sure enough, thinking about that kind of thing is wrong. Doing that kind of thing is also wrong. I really am a bad child. Seeing this, Sun Lang shouted again, "You're not allowed to cry." He understood Princess Ping Yang very well. Sure enough, it was fine if he didn't shout, but once he shouted, Princess Ping Yang could no longer hold it in. Big beads of tears rolled down her face again, and she looked as if the end of the world had come. The last time he saw her like this was about 4 or 5 years ago. This little girl's face was pale, and she rushed into his tent in panic. She hugged him and cried. While crying, she said that she was about to die. Her petite body was trembling, and she even began to tell him what to do after her death. When he asked her what was going on, she stammered and refused to say. After taking out her master's dignity, she broke down and cried, and said that that place was bleeding, and it was bleeding a lot. Thanks to the progress of modern society, thanks to the development of the information age, thanks to the popularization of national education, even a person like Sun Lang could guess what happened to Princess Pingyang. With a dark face, he carried the princess to Annie Lu and left. Afterwards, Princess Pingyang did not have the face to speak to him for half a month. At that time, her expression was pretty much the same as it was now. Thinking of the past, Sun Lang sighed in his heart. He was only in his 20s, far from the age where he was grieving over spring and autumn. However, what he had experienced in these short 8 years was magnificent waves that an ordinary person could not imagine in their lifetime. The days of the past, for him, were like his previous life. It was because it was so far away that it was worth remembering. However, the most important thing right now was how to fool the emperor, and how to take Pingyang out. He was already 70% certain that there was no restriction placed on Pingyang's body by the devil. The remaining 30% still needed to be investigated. Since he had confirmed this point, he had no reason to keep Pingyang in the royal palace. And there was another problem. Sun Lang glanced at the emperor. His gaze was cold and calm, and he did not reveal any of his inner thoughts. Since there was no restriction placed on Pingyang's body, why did the emperor push her to me? You should know that if we play mind games, even 100 Pingyangs would not be my match. Did he just want to make things difficult for me? Did he want me to be on guard against her? Did he want me to always have misgivings? However, given Pingyang's nature of accepting adversity and valuing the opinions of others more than herself, even if I am on guard against her and keep her distance, she will only hide in the shadows and cry. What is the use of the emperor's move? Unless Sun Lang's heart trembled slightly. He seemed to have grasped a bit of what the emperor was thinking. Tisk. Regardless of what the emperor's true thoughts were, he still decided to continue this act. He squeezed the canned herring in his hand again. The cracks immediately closed tightly. The sword chi stirred and turned into a gentle breeze. The terrifying aura of hell dissipated with it. Finally escaping from this stinking hell, the emperor gulped in the fresh air. The sky was so blue, the air was so fresh, and the world was so beautiful. The thought of embracing nature rose in his heart. Before he could rejoice in his heart, he heard Sun Lang say, "I'm scared of you. I will make things difficult for your father. Is that okay? Put away your tears for me." The emperor had escaped from excrement. He immediately felt unhappy. He had escaped this disaster because of his daughter's face. How infuriating! In a low voice, he said, "Let me go." Sun Lang narrowed his eyes. "If I sneak into the palace every day to feed you a can, how long can you endure it?" The emperor's face revealed a furious expression. Before he could say anything ruthless, he heard Sun Lang say, "I will wear night clothes and even use the bone-shrinking skill to change my body's shape. As for the aces in the palace, even if they saw you eating excrement, they would not be able to determine my identity for my martial arts. I can use the family martial arts that they are best at to beat them until they suspect their ancestors. Also, there are many people who can provide me with an alibi." Looking at the emperor's flustered and exasperated gaze, Sun Lang smiled. He thought of a horror short film he had seen in his previous life. It was about a spoon murderer who used an ordinary metal spoon to beat the main character to death. The murderer seemed to have been doing this for over a decade. He could appear at any time and any place and was invulnerable. Even tanks could not blast him to death. He was like a ghost that lingered around the main character, persistently using an ordinary broken spoon to continuously beat the main character to death. This film seemed to reflect the omnipresent pressure in modern society. It seemed light, but was enough to be fatal. It was said that it had caused a great sensation. The crazy behavior of the murderer in the film was somewhat similar to Sun Lang's threat. This was because Sun Lang could also show off like him, and the murder weapon was much more vicious than a spoon. At this moment, he even had the impulse to put into practice. Sun Lang thought of this, and his expression became even gentler. He said, "See, Your Majesty, I always have a variety of ways. The two of us are fighting in the imperial court. We are mortal enemies. The chessboard is the entire world. What we are betting on is the fate of the empire. For this reason, we are scheming against each other and fighting openly and covertly in the imperial court. This seems very pretentious, but it is actually very meaningless. What I mean is we should find some fun to lighten the mood." He waved the medallion in front of the emperor and said faintly, "Your Majesty, do you know the 100 ways to use canned herring?" "I do not know, but I can slowly deduce and try. I promise you, no matter how our enmity ends, you'll have a deep and unforgettable memory." The emperor was angry, and also a little panicked. It was said that the king of hell was easy to see, but the little demons were difficult to deal with. When the king of hell became difficult to deal with, things would become doubly troublesome. The empire's courteous treatment of the grandmasters was not only because they admired their achievements on the road of martial arts. Everyone knew that once a grandmaster put aside his face to do dirty work, the destructive power was immeasurable. For example, Sun Lang's current threat. He just wants to disgust you. His ultimate goal is to disgust you. He doesn't kill you. He doesn't beat you. He doesn't kill you. And he doesn't even hurt you. He just wants to use any prank he can think of to torment you. And with his bad temper and extreme martial arts achievements, he is indeed able to do this. The empire had been established for hundreds of years, but there had never been such a shameless grandmaster. Such a shameless grandmaster was really a great anomaly in the history of martial arts. It must be known that when a strong martial artist reached the peak of the realm, they had walked their own path to the extreme. Once they transcended the mortal world and entered the divine world, they naturally had rules and boundaries in their hearts. This was the so-called bearing of a grandmaster. The true bearing of a grandmaster was not an act, but originated from the grandmaster's perfect, flawless, and pure martial arts heart. If a grandmaster casually did some thieving things, it would form something similar to an inner demon. From his point of view, Sun Lang was indeed worthy of the title of #1 in the world. How did I provoke such a thing? The emperor even had the thought of regret, but it was only a thought. This thought was quickly extinguished, and the emperor's voice became cold. "Since you have spoken threats, it means that your ambition is not here. No need to talk nonsense. Sun Lang, what do you want to extort?" Sun Lang rubbed his hands and smiled honestly. "What are you talking about, Your Majesty? It's obvious that you want to reward a great minister again. How can you say that it's extortion? If word gets out, do you still want to lose face?" Chapter 992. What kind of humiliation was this alliance under the city walls? The emperor was so angry that he felt dizzy. Even when the sky demon came at him aggressively, he didn't take a step back. He didn't expect that when dealing with Sun Lang, he would sign one unequal treaty after another. It was a disgrace to his country. Damn it. However, the canned herring was placed beside Sun Lang's hand. This kind-looking bastard was simply the world's most shameless local ruffian. In terms of his ability to bully the weak and blackmail, it far surpassed his attainments in martial arts and the art of war. The emperor had only shown a little bit of fear, and this lion had already opened its greedy, bloody mouth. "I should have sent this bastard to the Honlu temple," the emperor thought angrily. If this bastard was responsible for dealing with the barbarians of the other countries, the empire wouldn't suffer any losses for 100 years. Thinking of this, the emperor said sarcastically, "The general of divine strategies is really good at doing business. When it comes to the ability to take advantage of others' misfortune, I'm really amazed. The general of divine strategies has just returned to the capital and hasn't been given a real position yet. Why don't you go to the Honlu temple as a minister and let the barbarians experience the means of the celestial empire?" Sun Lang's eyes lit up. He said happily, "Really? The emperor was stunned. A minister of the Honglu Temple was responsible for the four barbarians' tributes, feasts, gifts, and welcoming. It was a fourth-rank official position. If Sun Lang was a first-rank Shinsei general, not only would his profession not match, but it would also be a waste of talent. The emperor was just secretly mocking Sun Lang. Why was he so excited? But then he realized what was going on. His face couldn't help but darken. If this bastard was responsible for dealing with the four countries of water, fire, metal, and wood, he would definitely fill his own pockets and sell the empire for a good price. Thinking of this, he said coldly, "I'm joking." Sun Lang sighed bitterly. Damn it, the opportunity to steal and sell state-owned assets, collect huge bribes from foreign reactionary forces, and betray the secrets of the empire was missed just like that. Damn it, the country bumpkins of the empire completely did not realize the power of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. If he were the minister, he could even collect money from both sides and attract foreign investment to enrich himself. He could become the richest man in the world within a year. Didn't you say that a monarch never goes back on his word? Sun Lang glanced resentfully at the emperor. Your Majesty, you didn't keep your word. I'm a bit flustered. You can even joke about this. If you go back on your word after the fact, how can I seek justice? The emperor looked at him expressionlessly. If I were to turn hostile and deny it, you would sneak into the palace to feed me shit. Of course, I would have to carefully consider it. But such shameful words could never be said. He snorted. What do you want? Sun Lang's hand reached towards his own clothes. Immediately, he was startled. He lowered his head to look at this extraordinarily luxurious, first-rank military robe that symbolized his identity and status. Reluctance appeared on his face. Then, he reached his evil claws towards the emperor and pulled open his lapel. Old rules. The emperor was shocked. What was he doing? He could not help but think of a piece of information about Sun Lang in the early years. The information showed that this fellow was always flirtatious, but his body was very proper. Although beauty was clearly at his fingertips, he behaved like a gentleman. For as long as 6 years, he had not intercourse with any woman. The internal guards had analyzed that this person was very likely to be a lord of Longyang, who probably had some unspeakable twisted hobby. Now, Sun Lang was undoing his clothes without saying anything. The old emperor could not help but feel a chill in his heart. Did this lord of Longyang not prefer handsome manservants with skin whiter than snow? He struggled with all his might, and his voice was somewhat distorted. What are you doing? Princess Pingyang, on the other hand, was dumbfounded. Her master was tearing off her father's clothes, and this scene was happening right in front of her. After a moment of shock, the princess subconsciously covered her eyes. With the sound of ripping silk, Sun Lang tore off a piece of snow-white cloth from under the emperor's dragon robe. He held the silk in his hand in front of the surprised and bewildered emperor. With a sincere expression, he said, Your Majesty, please write an imperial edict. No, I mean a written pledge. He said seriously, Your Majesty, after you have written the edict with your blood, why don't you seal it in a jade belt and then reward it to me? As for Lord Bao, you can give him a brocade robe. The emperor had not recovered from the shock and asked subconsciously, What do you mean? Sun Lang said sincerely, Your Majesty has rewarded me with many things today, but I doubt Your Majesty's political reputation and business integrity. Just in case, let's write a contract. The emperor was furious. Damn it, I wrote something like this for you, and you turned around and showed it off. Where should I put my face? He shouted. A monarch does not joke, Sun Lang said as if nothing had happened. A minister of the Honglu Temple. The emperor was speechless for a moment, and then he tried to defend himself. That was just a joke with General Shinsei. This is a matter of national importance. How can I deny it and turn my face away? Sun Lang sat cross-legged on the ground, supported his chin with his hand, and sighed. The Great Barren Mountain. The emperor was furious. You're not done, are you? He swept the edict to the side, stood up, and tidied his robe. His cheeks were still aching, and he could not help but scold. Second Minister, you traitor! Sun Lang came forward with a simple and honest face. Your Majesty, are you in pain? My martial arts are the best in the world, and my inner strength is unprecedented. I am willing to heal your majesty." The emperor said angrily, "Get lost." Sun Lang sighed. "The monarch is heartless, and the monarch is unjust. He is not even willing to sign a contract, but I cannot be unjust. Today, I have reached an agreement with your majesty. I will give your majesty a token." He stretched out his hand, and the canned herring on the ground floated into the air and fell into his palm. Before the emperor could react, Sun Lang stuffed the thing into his hand as fast as lightning. When the cold skin of the can came into contact with the emperor's palm, the emperor could not help but shiver, as if he was holding a pile of feces in his hand. It was really disgusting, and he was about to throw it out. "Who wants your—" Sun Lang had already retreated 3 feet away, and then he signaled Princess Pingyang to hide. He smiled and said, "Your Majesty, don't be impulsive. I have placed a sword energy on the can, and it is connected to your Majesty's chi to maintain balance. You have to grasp it tightly, because once the can leaves your hand, the sword energy inside will not be able to sense your Majesty's chi, and it will immediately explode. Of course, if your Majesty is a peerless man and has reached the realm of releasing Jinchi as you wish, then just pretend that I didn't say anything. I want to see your Majesty's shocking cultivation." Hearing this, the emperor's scalp tingled, and his heart was filled with disgust and disgust. He angrily said, "Sun Lang." Sun Lang smiled and said, "Your Majesty, don't panic. After one day, the sword energy will dissipate. This is just a small reminder for your Majesty. As the saying goes, a teacher for a day, a father for life. Your Majesty gave Pingyang life, and I also have the grace of teaching her. My disciple can only be bullied by me, and I always keep my words. You better remember it in your heart." The emperor's expression changed, and finally he coldly said, "Get lost." Sun Lang looked at Pingyang and smiled. "Let's go." Princess Pingyang hesitated, took a step back, and shook her head. "Master," she really wanted to go with Sun Lang. 2 years had passed, and nothing had changed. The palace was as cold as ever. Father was as cold as ever, and Master was as gentle as ever. Compared to staying in the depths of the palace, where the wind and frost were endless, being by Master's side was obviously a better place. But Father obviously has bad intentions for Master. "You want me to go to Master's side? There must be some conspiracy. I can't make things difficult for Master," Sun Lang impatiently said. "Go, your father asked you to get lost, and I asked you to come over. This is a dual order of filial piety in Master. Why are you dawdling? Have you forgotten the 3 obedience and 4 virtues? And your father also promised me a large sum of money. If you don't go with me, who can I get the money from?" Princess Pingyang looked at her father again. The emperor's expression was as cold as ever. He had many children, but he no longer had any feelings. In the cruel battle for the position of crown prince, and the even crueler battle in the imperial court, he had cried tears of joy for the birth of his first child, but the warmth of a father's love seemed to have long been worn away by the cold throne. At least, Pingyang had no impression of it. The girl whispered, "Father." The emperor did not reply, and raised his voice. "Men," Sun Lang said calmly, wielding the star-suppressing sword and holding down the fort in the Hutu Sword Palace. "You've covered this country with a fig leaf, helping your father to get through the most difficult days. You've already repaid the grace of giving birth to him. Now, it's time for you to repay me." The emperor still did not say a word. Princess Pingyang heard this and lowered her head, saying softly, "Yes." She had never had any opinions of her own. As long as she could convince herself with a reason, she could muddle along and continue to run away. This was not good, but it was not bad either. Outside, shadows flashed. The inner guards who had long been unable to hold themselves back entered in a single file. However, the Grand Masters guarding the palace were still spying in the dark. Powerful spiritual senses shone like searchlights in the Imperial Garden, all focused on Sun Lang. Sun Lang turned to look at the Emperor, but the Emperor had already put his hands behind his back, as if nothing had happened, and hid the canned herring in his sleeve. Seeing Sun Lang's half-smile, The emperor's breathing quickened. Shinsei General grinned. The Forbidden Palace is not bad. The emperor coldly snorted. Facing the gazes of many grandmasters hiding in the dark, Sun Lang stepped forward and pointed out one by one. Your inner breath is cold, your breathing is cold, and your martial bones are like frost. You should be practicing some kind of sinister, evil skill. Although I don't know what you're practicing, I can tell that you haven't practiced it well. You have an internal injury on your left arm, right? Your weak point is on your right shoulder blade. You're quite afraid of Buddhist finger techniques, right? Your body is like fire, but you're a eunuch. Aren't you afraid of exploding? It's not difficult to make you explode into a bloody gourd. So what if I reverse my Yuan Fu and use 30% of my Xianin genuine Qi to attack your Yangwei meridian? What are the bald donkeys of Taoism doing here? You haven't practiced Xuan Fu yet you come out. If someone attacks your Yanghua meridian with a fast sword, you'll be finished. Hey, there's also someone who practices hidden weapons. What are you afraid of? You're so weak, I won't criticize you. The imperial consecrators gathered here were only hiding in the dark, waiting for an opportunity to strike. However, when they saw Sun Lang pointing at them one by one, it was as if he had seen through all of their whereabouts. Every time he pointed at someone, the other party's mind would tremble. Furthermore, Sun Lang's few words made them break out in a cold sweat. Those who did not win the prize were also anxious, afraid that Sun Lang would point at them next and reveal many of their family's weaknesses and secrets. Unknowingly, the mentality of these grandmasters had already fallen into an absolute disadvantage. Even if they were to fight at this time, they would definitely be defeated like chopping melons and vegetables. And Sun Lang's casual judgment of the world had deeply shocked them. There was actually such a person in this world. They had never met and were not close to each other, but he could distinguish each person's kung fu and even their weaknesses just by listening. How powerful was his kung fu? Even the grandmasters, whose hearts were as firm as iron, were momentarily shaken in the face of such a terrifying opponent. Then, a shout resounded through the imperial garden. Idiot! This shout was not stingy with the Buddha's Vajra roar or the Taoist primogenitor's demon subduing shout. Moreover, it took advantage of the short moment when the grandmaster's kung fu hearts were shaken. The vulgar words, which contained a strong inner force, spread out like a thunderclap, causing painful groans to be heard from all over the imperial garden. The grandmasters were shocked and angry. They hurriedly guarded their minds, and then secretly cried out in shame. The timing of this roar was extremely accurate. If the devil cult leader had used the demonic sound, more than half of the grandmasters present would have been turned into idiots. However, Sun Lang's martial arts were strong and his vision was high. Even the devil cult leader would be left in the dust. If he had the intention to kill, how could the people present be alive? At the very least, they would be seriously injured. But now he had held back. After Sun Lang finished scolding, he shook his head and sighed. This year's imperial consecrator is not good. One look, and I can tell that he has never been on the battlefield. He doesn't know how treacherous people are and how the world changes. I have to learn from him. He waved to Princess Pingyang and said, "Let's go." Everyone could not help but avert their gazes, not daring to meet Sun Lang's gaze. Regardless of whether it was the inner guards who were filled with righteous indignation or the grandmasters who were hiding in the dark, unknowingly, everyone's hearts were dancing in Sun Lang's hands. After an unknown period of time, the emperor said lightly, "Let's disperse. Let me be alone." The eunuchs and internal guards were discerning. They knew that the emperor was definitely in a bad mood, so they did not even dare to persuade him. They all left the imperial garden and were busy with sealing their mouths. It was better for what had happened today to rot, and no one noticed that a mysterious will had quietly descended on the imperial garden. "Have you sent your daughter away?" The emperor asked while knowing the answer, but the emperor did not answer. The voice said slowly, "You humans are overcautious when doing things. You think a lot and like to leave a way out for yourself. But you don't know that too much will only make you lose your drive. You push this daughter you don't like to Sun Lang. Are you thinking that if you completely fail, you can still leave the last bloodline of the imperial family?" The emperor said lightly, How is that possible? I won't lose. Chapter 993. How is that possible? I won't lose. The emperor said faintly. The emperor of the empire would never easily reveal his inner thoughts, nor would he let others see through his true thoughts, not even his closest partners. Li Guangyuan had always been suspicious by nature, and decades of being on the throne had deepened the harshness and suspicion in his temperament. He did not believe in Sun Lang, Empress, or the princes. He did not even believe in human beings. So how could he completely trust the spirit of a sky demon sword? They were just using each other. Both of them had a tacit understanding about this. Won't lose. The devil asked suddenly. Then what are you hiding in your sleeve? When the emperor heard this, his face turned red, and he said angrily, Is it fun to make fun of me? When I was humiliated by that thief before, you didn't come out to help, but now you're making sarcastic remarks here. Mo Ling's voice was so calm that it was hard to tell if she was telling the truth or not. Sun Lang has been looking for me all this time. Today, he caused a ruckus in the Imperial Garden. Most likely, it was to test my location. How can I do as he wishes? With his cautious nature, he will only feel at ease after he catches all of us in one fell swoop. It was true. Kill the devil of the ancestor first. The Emperor's dream of immortality would be shattered, and he would certainly launch a fierce revenge. Even though Sun Lang was powerful, he could not split himself. Even if only one or two of the relatives and friends he cared about were lost, it would be a lifelong regret. It was the same for dealing with the Emperor first. The devil of the ancestor had accurately grasped Sun Lang's mentality. The Emperor just snorted and reluctantly accepted this explanation. The devil asked again, How did he humiliate you? Asking this was not giving him face. The Emperor's face darkened. Thinking of Sun Lang's ugly face before, he could not help but feel angry. He did not want to answer, and then he heard the devil say, We are partners, and Sun Lang is our common enemy. He is full of tricks, insidious and tricky. Today's matter, he may have buried a lot of powerful backup plans. For the sake of you and me, I suggest you be honest. The devil sincerely advised. You are an overlord who has endured 100 times to become an emperor. You should treat these little humiliations as a breeze, and not let them blind your reason and influence your judgment. Li Guangyuan's expression was very subtle. As an emperor, it was his instinct to be suspicious. He sneered and said, You said so much, you don't just want to hear a story. Don't judge me with your human thoughts. As a human with a short lifespan, you can never imagine what I have seen in my long time. The devil's tone was very calm, but it contained the vicissitudes of life accumulated over the years. The glory and glory of the past, all the blood and fire, had become a corner of eternal memory, only for recollection and aftertaste. It said faintly, I have seen the Templars in the starry sky of Ire launch a leap to the lost home planet, and countless blue streamers illuminated the dark universe. I have seen the Lich King summon his army in the polar regions of Azeroth, and the bone dragon that had slept for 10,000 years roar to the dark sky. I have seen the courage and heroism of the fearless fleet of the Star Alliance across the distance of light years to rush out of hyperspace to support the extraordinary. You have never heard of or seen all this. Tell me, would I be interested in your trivial scandal? The feudal emperor, whose soul was bound by gravity, did not understand but felt that it was awesome. Even if he was the current emperor and had the wealth of the world, he had never heard of such things. He couldn't help but feel a little ashamed. In front of this ancient devil spirit that had lived for who knows how many years, he could be said to be ignorant and inexperienced. It was just that this devil's way of speaking and tone was very similar to Sun Lang's. According to when Sun Lang bragged, he also liked to talk about these mysterious things that others couldn't understand. It should be that during those 6 years, Sun Lang had spent all his time with the demon. So he had heard a lot of strange stories from the demon. Then, he had taken him out to boast. Humph, this old thing is just a broken sword. He had followed his master for countless years and had gained a lot of knowledge. Now, He dares to flaunt his seniority in front of me. How hateful! Although the emperor cursed in his heart, he was still intimidated. He hesitated for a moment, and in his heart, he was indeed afraid that Sun Lang might have left behind traps and plots, so he could only reluctantly talk about the losses he had suffered before. After listening, the devil pondered for a moment and said, "So that's how it is," the emperor said in a cold tone. "The speed of your speech seems to be a little lighter." The devil replied, "It's because I'm relieved. Although he beat you up, he did not take the opportunity to explore your body, and I did not feel the power he left in your body. This boy is very clever." The emperor took out the canned herring in his hand and said angrily, "He left this for me. He also said that he put sword energy in it. When I let go, it will explode. You removed the restriction for me." The devil said without hesitation, "It's fine if it explodes. Sun Lang has a sense of propriety. Before he has a plan, he will definitely not hurt you." The emperor was flustered and exasperated. "It's filled with shit." The devil's huge divine thoughts swept over and then said, "Nonsense, it's clearly filled with fish." The emperor even had the impulse to roll his eyes. This ancestor, the devil, had lived in the sword for a long time, and his way of thinking was very different from that of human beings. There was no way to communicate with him at all. He said impatiently, "Anyway, remove the sword energy in it." The devil scanned it again. "What sword energy? Sun Lang tricked you." He pondered for a moment, then smiled and said, "What a stubborn lad. You pushed your daughter to him and made him suspect that there was a restriction placed on Pingyang by me. Then he became suspicious and put himself in a difficult position. Then he handed this thing to you and made you worried for a while." The emperor was stunned at first, then gritted his teeth and said, "This cunning boy." But when he recalled the purgatory-like smell, he shivered. "Really?" The emperor got a positive answer and no longer wanted to hold the hot potato in his hand. He immediately identified the general direction that Sun Lang had left in, and with the strength of his right arm and the genuine chi running, he suddenly threw it. The devil suddenly shouted, "Wait a minute!" Bang! Sun Lang, who had already left the inner palace, suddenly turned back and clenched his fist. "Yeah." The head of the internal guards who were responsible for sending the general out of the palace were shocked. Sending the general out was fake, but monitoring was real. Their mission was to not let Sun Lang make any more trouble, so they were on tenterhooks all the way. When they suddenly saw Sun Lang stop and cheer, looking very proud, they felt a little guilty. Sun Lang had just been presumptuous in front of the emperor. Not only did he humiliate the emperor, but he also humiliated the internal guards and the officials. As the saying goes, if the emperor was humiliated, the officials would die. How could these internal guards be happy? But because of this person's fierce power, it was really not good to get angry. At the moment, one of them said politely, "General, it's not convenient to stay in the inner palace. Let's hurry on our way. If some gossipy palace maids and eunuchs see you here, if they make up some rumors, it will also damage your reputation." Sun Lang laughed. "What rumors? Saying that I sleep in the dragon bed at night and have sex with the harem?" The faces of the internal guards all turned the color of pig liver. They wished that they could increase their power by 100 times and punch this bastard who was full of nonsense into pieces. If other officials dared to say such nonsense, they would be squatting in the internal guards' dark prison at the latest. But the head of the internal guards who had just spoken forced a smile and said, "General, it's important that we hurry." Even if the emperor was as cunning as a ghost, he still drank the water that Sun Lang washed his feet. General Shunsei achieved a life achievement and was very happy. When a person was happy, he was easy to talk to. He did not want to lower himself to the level of these internal guards. Just as he was about to leave the palace, he suddenly had an idea. Looking at the hostility and hatred in the eyes of the internal guards, he thought for a moment. The head of the internal guards, Meiruazo, was a person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Today, he had beaten him back with one palm and humiliated the old man. Not to mention that the internal guards had collectively lost face in front of the emperor. The hatred between the two sides would not be resolved. In this case, he could borrow the Emperor's sword and see if he could kill Mei Ruazo. He made up his mind and waved to the head of the internal guards. He secretly transmitted a message to the head of the internal guards. Do you know why I was so happy just now? Because I put a restriction on His Majesty. Now the Emperor has triggered the restriction. Even if he doesn't die, he will lose half of his life. If I'm not wrong, His Majesty must be alone and there must be no one around to look after him. If you don't go to Mei Ruazo to save him, you can only collect the Emperor's corpse. The internal guards' faces changed greatly. They all stepped back and looked at Sun Lang. Their eyes kept changing. One of them forced a smile and said, "General, don't be a fool." Sun Lang leisurely turned around and left, believe it or not. The internal guards looked at each other. One of them gritted his teeth and said, "I'll go back and find Commander Mei." Nothing was trivial in the imperial family. If His Majesty was fine, it was just a trip. Sun Lang and the others leisurely left the palace. The internal guards who had completed their task turned around and ran away. Bao Shiren looked at the magnificent palace gate and the deep imperial city. He said in a daze, "It's over." Sun Lang stared at him and said, "Why are you here?" Bao Shiren shouted, "I've been following you all the way. You just found out." However, he immediately thought of another matter. He pounced on Sun Lang like a wolf and made a gesture to strangle him. "What the F***ck have you done?" "Ah!" Sun Lang slapped him aside and picked his nose. "Bao Haizi, how can you bite the hand that feeds you? I've saved your life twice." Bao Shiren recalled the scene of him breaking Wang Zhen's neck and sweeping away the other grandmasters. It was as if he was a rebel who had broken into the palace. Even an innocent and good person like Bao Shiren had to suffer the disdain of the inner guards. His reputation as an official for more than 10 years was even showing signs of being destroyed. Thinking of this, his face turned pale with anger. "Save my life twice? You're pushing me into a fire pit. Before entering the palace, I repeatedly told you to speak calmly and not be violent. What about you? Before I even started speaking, you killed a eunuch. I already said that I could come alone, but you insisted on coming. You came and killed people. You. I'm so angry." Sun Lang shook his head and pointed to Princess Pingyang behind him. "Do you know who she is?" Previously, when Sun Lang left the Imperial Garden in a hurry, Bao Shiren knew how dangerous it was and hurriedly followed. Along the way, he was monitored by the internal guards and did not say anything. Only now did he have the opportunity to greet them. He saw that the woman beside Sun Lang was dressed in palace attire and had a veil over her face, but she looked familiar. He already had a guess in his heart, so he saluted seriously and said, "Governor Bao Shiren greets Princess Pingyang." Princess Pingyang bowed timidly and then hid behind Sun Lang. Sun Lang said concisely, "This time, the Emperor summoned you to the Imperial Garden to have an audience with him. He wants to betroth his daughter to you, an unyielding young talent." Bao Shiren was stunned at first, then his body trembled as if he had been struck by lightning. He was not stupid, so he could completely guess the Emperor's intentions. Princess Pingyang's face was red, as if she was afraid that Sun Lang would misunderstand. She gathered her courage and poked her head out. She said in an apologetic but firm tone, "I don't want to marry a big-nosed man." Bao Shiren was still in shock when he suddenly heard this sentence. His body trembled again. Big-nosed man. Even with his temperament, he could not help but feel sad. This Princess Pingyang looked delicate and reserved. But how could she be so sharp-tongued? Her words were so hurtful. Sun Lang coughed and said earnestly, "Pingyang, don't be so harsh with your words." After scolding the princess, he seemed to be in a hurry to change the topic. He continued to ask, "So, Bao Shiren, if I didn't follow you, if I didn't mess up the situation, how would you deal with the Emperor's great kindness by marrying the princess to you?" Bao Shiren glanced at Princess Pingyang and said sadly, "His Majesty used his own flesh and blood as a chess piece to plot against me. He provoked a dispute between you and me, and even wanted to drag Master into the situation. Since I was determined to find out the truth, how could I be at the mercy of His Majesty? I would have refused and told His Majesty about the matter of the Sword Palace. I would have questioned His Majesty. Sun Lang said lightly. If I wasn't by your side, you wouldn't be able to avoid the crime of offending the emperor and being sent to the death row. Even if I was by your side, you would have been in an even more embarrassing situation. You would have needed my help. Not only would you be stained with blood, I'm afraid that Wang Jin wouldn't be the only one to die. Bao Shiren let out a long sigh. Thank you. After he thanked him, he asked again, You said that you saved me 3 times. What else? Sun Lang raised a finger. That cat girl Zhang Zhao obviously has deep feelings for you. You cruelly abandoned her before coming here. She must be very sad and hate you. If you agree to the marriage and bring back a princess, it would be strange if she doesn't want to kill you. This plot is so familiar. Bao Shiren, I didn't expect a black-faced and long-bearded guy like you to be Chinshimi. How many times have I said it? I'm innocent and have nothing to do with Garjon. When Bao Shiren heard that it was this kind of life-saving grace, his expression turned cold. He looked at Sun Lang and said lightly, Although I don't know who Chinshimi is, the person who brought the princess back seems to be you. Sun Lang heard this and couldn't help but shudder. He then forced a smile and said, This is my disciple. I saved her from the sea of bitterness. How can it be compared? You black-faced guy actually cursed me. You have no conscience. To think that I was kind enough to ask the emperor for a brocade robe for you. What brocade robe? Oh, brocade robe and imperial edict. You take the brocade robe, and I take the imperial edict. Loyalty and treachery are clearly distinguished. As the 3 of them talked, they left in the direction of the Mars Sword Palace. In the palace, the emperor flew into a rage and spat out countless vicious curses at Sun Lang. He gritted his teeth and said, Imperial edict, imperial edict, imperial edict. I will write one for Bao Shiren. God damn it. Chapter 994. I used Wu Hui's matter to threaten the emperor and had a friendly meeting with him. After returning to the Mars Sword Palace, Sun Lang gave everyone a brief explanation of what had happened in the palace. I used the truth to convince the emperor. He felt that what I said was very reasonable and felt very ashamed. He hugged my leg and cried, begging me to let him go. He promised countless benefits and was willing to give me his daughter as a bribe. Thinking of the friendship between a ruler and a subject, I agreed to his terms. Sun Lang pointed at Princess Pingyang, who was standing at the side. It's her. Princess Pingyang, who was at a loss in front of everyone, looked at Sun Lang for help. As a Mars sword attendant, Wu Hui's status was not ordinary. He had also attended the imperial banquet and had seen Princess Pingyang several times. He could not help but be shocked. It really is the princess. This sword attendant Wu, who was almost killed by the emperor, felt like he was in a dream. He could not believe his eyes. When the emperor sent an envoy in, he was so scared that his heart trembled. He was on the emperor's assassination list and luckily escaped for a while. No one would be able to remain calm in such a situation. After Sun Lang and Bao Shiren entered the palace, Wu Hui had been trembling in fear, afraid that the imperial family's assassins would quietly appear and take his life. Unexpectedly, the matter was resolved just like that. He still felt that it was unbelievable and asked carefully, General, is this true? Giving the princess, this was a F*** marriage. Only the most shameful emperor would do such a thing. He could not imagine that the emperor, who had great talent and bold vision, would be so humble to Sun Lang. Sun Lang smiled warmly and said, You should believe it. Wu Hui shivered. What did this mean? Sun Lang waved his hand, and the sacred fire sword that was suspended in the main hall of the sword palace, acting as the core of the defensive array, turned into a stream of light and merged into his body. Then, it was sealed and isolated by layers of sacred sword spiritual energy. He thought for a moment and then said, Wu Hui, I don't need to lie to you. Your matter is actually very serious. The emperor failed to kill you and exposed a very important secret. He will definitely not let this matter rest. Wu Hui's face was ashen as he nodded dejectedly. The killing intent originated from his own imperial army. His soul had almost been annihilated by Zhu Tian Bodhisattva. If this was the emperor's doing, It meant that the emperor could control the imperial army to kill the user. If news of this spread out, the officials would surely flip the sky upside down. As a survivor, he was the biggest witness. In order to keep it a secret, the emperor had to kill him. After all, promises and deals could not be trusted. Only the dead could keep secrets. Now that Sun Lang had interfered, although his life had been saved temporarily, he had also been dragged into the whirlpool of the battle between the two giants of Huda continent. He had become a chess piece in this game, and his future was uncertain. He had no control over himself, and his future was rather bleak. Thinking about that, he felt completely disheartened. Sun Lang said again, "I have just made a verbal agreement with the emperor. He should not do anything to you in the next 2 days. After all, you are not as useful as a chess piece. Once it is your turn to go on stage and accuse the emperor, it will be the beginning of a full-scale conflict. Neither he nor I are prepared." Wu Hui said in a low voice, "Yes." General Shin's tone was very calm. He put everything on the table. But the emperor will not leave you alone. He will not entrust his hope to others. He will either find a way to kill you and make you shut your mouth forever, or he will find a way to instigate you to betray him and let you stab me in the back at the critical moment. Wu Hui shuddered. All the hair on his body stood up again. He said in fear. Sun Lang's eyes fell on him. He said indifferently, "So, for me, the safest and most efficient way is to kill you and then frame the emperor." The swordsman of Mars said in a trembling voice, "General, you promised me," Sun Lang said indifferently, "but you seem to be hiding something from me, which makes me have the idea of using your life to make a deal with the emperor." The old man raised his head abruptly. Shock flashed in his eyes, followed by struggle and panic. Sun Lang said indifferently, "You may leave first. Think about it carefully." Wu Hui was stupefied for a moment. Then he left in a daze. Bao Shiren looked at his retreating figure and suddenly said, "Senior Wu Shibigu Ninji's family, right?" Sun Lang said indifferently, "It's too late. He escaped from the emperor's murderous intent." The lingering fear of escaping from death suppressed all responsibilities and restraints. His desire to live rose to the extreme, and he sought refuge under my command. Everyone in the capital knows about this matter. How can his family stay out of it? Even if he thinks about it later, it's useless. Even if he kills himself now to ask the emperor not to pursue his family, he still has to consider whether or not I will make things difficult for his family in my rage. He looked at Bao Shiren with a face full of surprise. "Are you trying to be my incompetent advisor?" Sir Bao came to his senses and immediately denied it. "How could I? I was just saying it casually." Sun Lang said happily, "Military advisor Bao, you don't have to be so modest. Your casual words have a deeper meaning. I immediately understood what you meant and thought of using Wu Hui's family to take the initiative to force him to submit. This is all thanks to you." Bao Shiren's face turned red. I'm not. He felt senior sister Ku, senior brother D, and senior brother Song's surprised gazes. The three of them looked shocked and questioned him as if they were saying, "Junior brother Bao, you actually defected to the enemy and became a traitor." This made Sir Bao feel wronged and ashamed. This was because in the depths of his heart, there was indeed a shameful wavering. This made him feel ashamed and unable to show his face. After all, the reunion of the 4 great constables and the magnificent feat of fighting against the powerful minister Sun Lang was brought about by him. The 3 of them also chose to fight alongside him because of their brotherhood. In the face of Sun Lang's powerful strength and pressure, senior sister Ku and the 2 senior brothers were unyielding. They swore to fight against Sun Lang to the end. But his thick eyebrows and big eyes junior brother, Bao, actually became a traitor. This was not very kind of him. He stammered, "Senior sister, senior brother, I. At this time, Sun Lang said, "Bao Hei Zi, inform your master to come and discuss important matters. It should be put on the agenda as soon as possible. The emperor is already suspicious of you." As soon as he said this, before Bao Shiren could reply, the other 3 great constables were shocked. Kun Nan screamed. What did you say? What important matters? Sun Lang lightly said, That is what I mean. Although Wu Ho has retired to the mountains and forests, but this matter concerns the stability of the country. If he is not muddle-headed and unable to walk, it would be best for him to make a trip to the capital. Kun Nin originally had a lot of enmity towards Sun Lang, and this was also related to her master. She thought for a moment, and then sneered, Invite my master to the capital? You want to use my master's reputation to realize your ambition. Sun Lang said, To realize my ambition, I don't need your master's reputation. I don't need him to act as a matchmaker for me. Kun Nin only sneered. After you entered the capital, you were bossy and domineering, acting like a powerful minister. You contradicted the emperor, bullied your colleagues, and stirred up the imperial court. Inviting my master to the capital, are you not afraid that he will assist the emperor and kill the country's traitors? Don't tell me you want to use my matters to coerce my master. Don't even think about it. Sun Lang looked at her. If he wants to be buried with the empire, that's fine. I don't care. Kun was so angry that her whole body was trembling. Even Di Huaying and Song Huifu's faces were not good. Sun Lang's tone was too big, which made them, as his disciples, very uncomfortable. In short, Sun Lang said, Wu Ho has retired to the mountains and forests and does not care about worldly affairs. But you are his disciples, so you should have a way to contact him, right? Just say that Sun Lang invited him to the capital to have a chat and ask him about it. Bao Shiren was about to speak, but Kun Nin took out her identity as the eldest senior sister and sternly said, Don't even think about it. Sun Lang indifferently said, It's up to you. I've already said, the emperor chose Bao Shiren to deal with me, and the biggest reason is to borrow Wu Ho's power. Now that Bao Shiren's attitude has changed, the emperor will definitely be suspicious. Even if I don't look for Wu Ho, the emperor will still look for him. Whether to kill him or invite him, that's another matter. Kun Nin coldly said, My master is a man of learning. He is a master of both civil and martial arts. The art of war is yin and yang, and his array diagrams are peerless. Under the heavens, there is no one who can kill him. You are wrong. Sun Lang's eyes flashed with a sharp, cold light. He looked at Kun Nin and coldly said, Under the heavens, there are only two people who can kill him. One of them is me, and the other one is on the emperor's side. When Princess Pingyang heard this, her body trembled slightly and quietly clenched her fists. Kun Nin was shocked at first. Then she clenched her teeth and laughed, truly arrogant. Sun Lang shook his head and looked at Bao Shiren. You make the decision. Think about it carefully. Bao Shiren looked at his senior sister and hesitated for a moment. My senior sister's internal injuries. Kun Nin shouted, No need for him to treat her. I don't want to use her to threaten master. After she finished speaking, her figure flashed and rushed out of the hall. Everyone was shocked. Di Huaying looked deeply at Bao Shiren. Junior brother, this is a serious matter. Before you make a decision, you have to think about it carefully. Finished speaking, he chased after her. Song Huifu patted Bao Shiren's shoulder and also followed out. Shen Yaohua was hesitating whether to go out with them, when she suddenly realized that Sun Lang's gaze had landed on her. General Shun Tse hesitated for a moment and slowly said, Miss Shun, please wait. Shen Yaohua blinked and then gently nodded. Sun Lang pushed Bao Shiren, who was in a daze, and said, Go and explain to your senior sister, so that there won't be a rift between your fellow disciples. They're all very good to you. Bao Shiren hesitated for a moment, and then bitterly said, No need. This matter started because of me, so naturally I will bear the burden. Don't let my senior sister worry about me. I'd better. Sun Lang pushed him hard. Bao Shiren's internal energy was not strong enough. He couldn't stand still and was pushed outside. His mouth was still saying, I have already made my decision. You pay? Stop pushing. As soon as he finished speaking, he was kicked in the butt, and his whole body flew out. Sun Lang impatiently shouted behind him, I have something to do here. Damn it, you're so blind. After kicking Bao Haizi away, Sun Lang's gaze fell on Shen Yaohua, and his tone subconsciously became gentle. I originally didn't want to trouble you. I'm sorry. When he used his words to pressure Conan's heart, he acted calmly and domineeringly, with the aura of an ambitious and ruthless person. When he talked about Wu Ho with Conan, he said that he would definitely kill him, unbridled and domineering. When he kicked Bao Shiren away, he cursed and swore like a complete hooligan. Who would have thought that when he turned around and spoke to Shen Yaohua, his voice would become soft and gentle? Shen Yaohua saw his polite and reserved manner, and not only did she not find it funny, she sighed softly, but still said, "It's no trouble." Sun Lang was just about to speak, but then he frowned and looked to the other side. "What are you doing here?" Zhang Zhao stood there very obediently, motionlessly staring at Sun Lang. She did not say a word from beginning to end. When she saw Sun Lang looking at her, her ears immediately pricked up, and a slightly stiff smile appeared on her face. Ever since she came to the Empire and entered the civil service system, she had forgotten what a flattering smile looked like. After all, she was following Bao Shiren, an honest and upright official. What she had to do every day was to follow Master Bao everywhere and occasionally arrest criminals. Usually, she could lie on the roof of the government office and bask in the sun. The yamen runners were polite to her, and there were small dried fish for every meal. Her salary allowed her to buy a lot of catmint. She did not need to flatter anyone at all. But now, she had to find a new owner for herself. She tried her best to recall what her mother had taught her. She tried to recall how an elegant cat should be able to win the love of its owner in a noble and dignified manner. She had to show off her beauty and her pride. She had to learn to be neither friendly nor aloof. She had to not be as shameless as the stupid dog ears. It was too difficult. She felt a little guilty, which made her smile stiffer. She had to bite the bullet and say, Is it my turn? I have something to do. I can wait. What should I say? Should I just lie down at his feet and show my belly?" Sun Lang glanced at the cat girl, who had a stiff smile, thought for a moment, and understood Zhang Zhao's inner thoughts. This girl must be deeply in love with Bao Haizi. She was previously abandoned and was unwilling to accept it, so she came to talk to him so that Bao Haizi could accept her again. So unhappy. I don't even have a place here, but I have to support the infrastructure of my brother country. Is there any justice left? No, I have to think a way to make fun of them. So he nodded and said, "Well, I have something to do here. You can wait outside for a while." Zhang Zhao felt as if she had been granted amnesty. She breathed a sigh of relief and lamented her poor performance in her heart. She left the hall dejectedly, her ears softened, and her tail drooped weakly on the ground. Sun Lang gave Princess Pingyang a look, meaning to watch her. Princess Pingyang nodded hard and followed him out. So only Sun Lang and Shen Yaohua were left in the hall. Looking at the girl in front of him, who was like a water lotus, Sun Lang wanted to say something, but his usual eloquence was completely useless. He hummed a few times and did not know what to say. Shen Yaohua took the initiative to reach out her hand. Sun Lang sighed in his heart. His index finger touched the other person's fingertip, maintaining only this level of contact. Both of their bodies trembled at the same time, and a power as gentle as water reflected off each other from a distance, building a resonant bridge. Their gazes occasionally met, and then quickly separated. Outside the hall, Princess Pingyang felt the strange fluctuation of power, and her expression changed slightly. But then, her attention returned to Zhang Zhao. Looking at the dispirited feline girl standing not far away, she whispered, "Cat-eared girl." It was obvious that Sun Lang had taught her a lot. Hearing this, Zhang Zhao looked up at her, and the sharp light of a cat-type predator shot out from her vertical pupils. Princess Pingyang was shocked. She was introverted and timid by nature. She thought that she had interrupted the other party's thoughts and caused the other party to be dissatisfied. She immediately began to think about how to express goodwill in exchange for forgiveness. Then, she thought of the behavior of the so-called cat-eared girl that her master had taught her. So the princess raised two small fists and raised them on both sides of her head. Meow. Chapter 995. The cat girl was stunned, as well as Princess Pingyang, who was still maintaining her meowing posture. The atmosphere fell into a strange silence. A small drop of cold sweat appeared on Her Highness's smooth forehead. Why didn't she respond? Master said that this was the cat girl's friendly gesture, but why was Ms. Jean unhappy? Was it because I didn't do it properly? Was it impolite for a human to do this to a cat girl? Could it be that Miss Jean had been naturalized in the Empire for so long that she forgot the etiquette of her hometown? Princess Pingyang's smile became more and more forced. Zhang Zhao also fell into deep thought. The other party was a member of the imperial family, the daughter of the emperor family. Her status was very honorable, much higher than a cat girl like her. So, although the other party's actions and tone were very idiotic, she couldn't roll her eyes. She had to show respect to a member of the imperial family. Wait, Zhang Zhao, who was standing in a daze, suddenly thought of another possibility, and her tail slowly wagged. The other party was Princess Pingyang, a member of the imperial family. Why would she do such an idiotic action in front of a cat girl like me? Perhaps there was a deeper meaning behind her actions that I didn't know about. Zhang Zhao's ears perked up. Could it be? As the famous black cat police captain of the capital government, Zhang Zhao had followed Bao Shiren to solve cases all year round and had learned a lot of professional knowledge. This had allowed her to develop a habit of meticulous observation. Previously, in the great hall of the Sword Palace, she had silently stood to the side and secretly observed. She had seen many things. For example, General Shansei and Princess Pingyang had a very good relationship, and they should be old friends who knew each other from a long time ago. Because Princess Pingyang habitually hid behind General Shinsei, she would be very relaxed and at ease when she was by General Shen's side, but she would be very nervous when she became the center of attention. For example, Princess Pingyang was very introverted, but she was a good person. So, why would the Honorable Princess Pingyang, who didn't have a bad heart, imitate a cat's clumsy and idiotic actions in front of me? Could it be that he's giving me pointers? That's right. She must have seen my embarrassment and uneasiness, so she gave me a suggestion. After all, she's someone who's very close to the Lord General, so she should know what the Lord General likes. Doing this kind of action in front of me, she wants me to imitate her and win the Lord General's favor. Is that it? After the setback just now, Zhang Zhao was more or less dumbfounded. Also, as a trader who had migrated to Hutu, she had considerable respect and reverence for the royal family of the Imperium. Therefore, for some reason, she slowly raised her hands and clenched them into cat paws before she mumbled, "Meow." Her furry ears and soft tail fluttered with her movements. It was so lively that it really looked like an elegant cat. It had to be said that just like how the Russians love to fight, the Africans love to dance, and the Cantonese loved to eat the Min people, this was the so-called racial talent. Zhang Zhao was the most suitable person to do this action. So cute. Princess Pingyang was stunned. Humans had a universal appreciation for beautiful things. After the initial appreciation, what emerged from the heart was great joy and relief. It had worked. She responded to me. Master was right. Faced with the enthusiastic response of her friend, Princess Pingyang was also excited. She turned her body to the side and waved her two small fists like windmills. Her eyes curved into two crescents. Meow, meow, meow. Oh, do I have to learn this move too? Okay. Faced with the princess's enthusiastic guidance, Zhang Zhao felt great gratitude in her heart. She immediately imitated the princess's actions and added her own understanding. She also began to meow. Miss Jean is much cuter than me when she does this. As expected of an authentic cat-eared girl. It was a vicious cycle. These two stupid creatures meowed at each other like idiots. Unfortunately, due to the strange changes in the Sword Palace today, the Mara swordsmen had strictly ordered the swordsmen and the protectors to perform their duties and not move around without permission. Otherwise, if others saw this scene, the Cattered Girl cult would have its first batch of believers. In the hall, Sun Lang and Shun Yaohua maintained a state of finger contact. The atmosphere was silent, and neither of them said anything. General Shunsei suddenly turned his head and frowned. He heard a strange voice. What are these two idiots doing? Shin Yaohua frowned slightly and looked at him with bright eyes, as if she was blaming him. Sun Lang was just about to investigate what Zhang Zhao and Shin Yaohua were meowing when he noticed the woman's gaze. He was puzzled for a moment, but then he reacted. He wanted to ignore it, but Shin Yaohua's gaze was stubborn and firm. Although she didn't say anything, it made him feel extremely uncomfortable. In the end, he rolled his eyes. What are these two little idiots doing? Then Shin Yaohua withdrew her gaze. She stared at their intertwined fingertips and suddenly said, "The longer you touch, the longer you'll be suppressed? Will the effect be different when the fingertip is in contact with the palm?" Sun Lang's heart skipped a beat, but he still shook his head. It doesn't matter. Today is a special situation. For everyone's safety, I have to do this. Otherwise, I can't be at ease. Shin Yaohua didn't deny it. She looked out of the hall and asked, "Is it for the princess?" Sun Lang nodded. He didn't know why, but he trusted Shin Yaohua very much and was willing to tell her some things. The emperor wanted to use her to plot against me, but I ruined it. He sent Ping Yang to my side to make me suspicious and put me in a difficult position. Shin Yaohua said softly, "But you still chose to accept her. What else can I do?" Sun Lang said calmly, "Let her stay in the cold palace alone and bear the malice from all sides, as well as the plot and used by her father, who doesn't care about family ties." Shin Yaohua said softly, "Are you so good to everyone?" Sun Lang was stunned and didn't understand what she meant. Shin Yaohua looked at him and sighed her heart. "The curse," Sun Lang said decisively. "Today is an exception. I won't trouble you in the future." Shin Yaohua looked at him quietly. "I can help." Sun Lang refused firmly. "Thank you for your kindness, but anyway, let's leave it at that." He withdrew his finger, and the resonating bridge of spiritual power was thus severed. He took a step back like a gentleman, cultured and refined, but restrained. He was no longer free and unrestrained like before. "Sorry to disturb you." Shin Yaohua was angry. She gritted her teeth. "We'll talk about it when you come begging me in the future." She was gentle and easy to talk to, but at this time, she lost her temper. Without waiting for Sun Lang to answer, she quickly left the hall. Sun Lang looked at her back and sighed slightly. Outside the hall, the two people were meowing. Princess Pingyang suddenly looked serious and stopped immediately. She took a deep breath and became quiet and obedient again. Zhang Zhao also stopped. Her face was a little red. These actions were too bold. She blushed, and her heart beat faster when she thought about how she would meow in front of Sun Lang. Then, Shin Yaohua walked out of the hall. The woman's watery eyes fell on Princess Pingyang's face. Her eyes showed a little curiosity, but her expression was a little sad and helpless. She said softly, "Your Highness, the general wants to see you." Princess Pingyang also stared at her. This kind of stare was very bold for the shy and introverted princess. She knew this woman, knew her origin, knew her story, and also knew the grudge between her and Sun Lang. She said softly, "Master," Shin Yaohua tilted her head. Princess Pingyang was about to say something when Sun Lang's voice came from inside the store. "Pingyang?" Her royal highness trembled and hurriedly walked inside. Shin Yaohua stood outside the hall for a moment and bowed to Zhang Zhao. "Goodbye." Zhang Zhao was thinking about her strategy and ignored her. The princess carefully entered the hall and saw Sun Lang in a daze. She called out, "Master." Sun Lang nodded. His body flashed and suddenly appeared in front of Princess Pingyang and grabbed her wrist. The princess exclaimed, and her cheeks blushed. She felt her body go soft. Her master's palm was hot, which made her mind sway and let her imagination run wild. Then she remembered the wonderful reaction of her body when she met her master in the Imperial Garden. Her lower abdomen suddenly became hot, and a tingling feeling came up. Sun Lang asked, You don't feel anything strange, right? The princess was stunned and then shook her head hard. Although her imagination was running wild, it was just her mind being shaken. It was not like the previous time, when it was like this. When I took the initiative to touch my master, I became like this. Now, when my master took the initiative to touch me, I had no reaction. Thinking of this, the princess couldn't help but feel sad. She blamed herself more and more in her heart. Ning was a lascivious girl. She actually had improper thoughts about her master, who was elegant and outstanding. Master clearly saw through her strange behavior before. Not only did he not mention it, but he also took the initiative to cover it up for her. Sun Lang concentrated his qi, and genuine qi flowed into Princess Pingyang's body. He thoroughly checked his disciple's body in case there was any hidden danger. Princess Pingyang did not take any precautions and let Sun Lang's huge internal force drive back and forth in her body. She just looked at her master's face in a daze and did not blink. Come back to your senses. Sun Lang reached out and knocked her head, and then let go of his hand. After a preliminary examination, Princess Pingyang did not have any hidden tricks in her body. Her surging internal energy was as vigorous as the roaring river and sea. She was already in the realm of a top-class master. It seemed that the 2 years of life as a sword master had brought her great benefits. But why did the devil not leave any hidden tricks? Sun Lang blinked his eyes and muttered to himself. Princess Pingyang asked in a low voice, "Master, what's wrong?" Sun Lang said, "Back then I fought with him. In the Battle of Souls, he was seriously injured and fainted. The Hutu sword lost its sword spirit, and the huge Hutu's spiritual energy was not controlled by the sword spirit. Instead, it benefited you." The princess wept and said, "I didn't mean to usurp your credit. I only did what I wanted to do. I didn't intend to take credit for myself, nor did I want to use this credit to exchange for anything. Don't cry. I know your temperament," Sun Lang said gently. "The emperor must have used despicable means to force you to submit, right?" Princess Pingyang said sadly. "Father said that if I listened to him and stayed in the star-suppressing sword palace, he would not pursue what Master did, nor would he implicate Master's family and friends. Idiot! How could your father have the guts to do that? He was just bluffing you." Sun Lang inwardly sneered, but seeing the princess' panicked appearance, he rubbed her head and said with a smile, "Thank you for helping me protect them." The princess was startled, and then she threw herself into Sun Lang's arms and burst into tears. With a soft and warm body in his arms, Sun Lang first subconsciously wanted to push her away, but then he paused and slowly placed his hand on the princess' shoulder. He suddenly regretting that he did not experiment with Xin Yaohua on how long it would last. As a result, he was not in the mood to carefully enjoy Pingyang's figure, but rather on edge. If it came now, it would be good to see. Pingyang cried for a while more. Sun Lang braced himself and pushed her away, wiping her tears while he was at it. "Okay, quiet down," and he hesitated but still said, "It's better to talk about it now. What plans do you have in the future?" The princess was still sobbing. Hearing this, her body trembled and she raised her head. "Wherever Master goes, I will go," Sun Lang said softly. "You know why I came back. You know what I want to do. You know that I can't stop because your father won't let it go. You know all this, right?" Princess Pingyang bit her lip and nodded slowly. Sun Lang sighed. "I'm sorry, Ning. We can talk about other things, but not this. If you stay in the capital, you won't be able to bear to see a full-scale war in the future. Instead of being heartbroken, it's better to avoid it as soon as possible. I'll arrange for you to leave the capital first, whether it's Jinling, Mingzhou, or even Li Hua. When this matter is over, I'll bring you back." Princess Pingyang was anxious. "I don't want to." She shook her head hard. "I want to stay with Master and not be separated from you. I've grown up. I can share Master's worries, fight under Master's command, and kill people for Master." Speaking of this, the princess hesitated, but still said slowly, "No matter who I kill." "Nonsense. How can it be so easy to kill people? Moreover, you're so soft that you don't even dare to kill a chicken. Moreover, I don't need you to kill people." Sun Lang thought for a moment and then said, "Forget it. It's up to you. If you want to stay, then stay for the time being. You can count as a new force. Don't cry when the time comes. Princess Pingyang nodded hard. I definitely won't cry. Master, please send me as you wish. I'm not the same as before. I'll definitely surprise you. Sun Lang didn't take these words to heart. Although he hadn't seen her for a long time, this girl was still the same as before. She was introverted, shy, and loved to cry. She hadn't changed, even after 2 years of holding the hoodoo, sacred sword. It could be said that a leopard couldn't change its spots. He waved his hand. Well, it's okay. I'll go out and see Bao Haizi and the others. Pingyang looked at his back and then lowered her eyes. Master, I can really kill people for you. I've already done it. Many, many people. Chapter 996. Princess Pingyang entered the hall, and Shun Yaohua left, leaving guard Zhan alone outside. The cat girl from the Greenwood Kingdom tried her best to relax. She was about to face an extremely high-standard interview, and the examiner was the most famous military officer in the empire. She planned to become his subordinate. She wanted to use the shortest time and the most unique method to gain the other party's favor. This was not a simple task, because the target was Sun Lang, the most outstanding general in the country. His previous name was Jiaying, and even Zhan Zhao, an outsider, had heard of his fame and reputation. She was just a barbarian from the Greenwood Kingdom and a free citizen of the third class. To become the other party's retainer with such a status was easier said than done. Fortunately, the kind and warm-hearted Princess Pingyang had given her valuable advice. She only needed to do that in front of the general, she thought to herself. Although it was very embarrassing to do that, there was no other way. In short, she had to gain the general's favor first. In the future, there would be plenty of time and opportunities to show her talents to him. Yes, that was it. Miss Zhan once again convinced herself and strengthened her belief. Suddenly, she heard a series of footsteps, and a figure flashed in front of her. The general had already stepped out of the hall and walked out. He's here. The cat girl quivered, and her cheeks immediately turned red. She shyly clenched her hands into claws and raised them to her chest, shaking her ears and wagging her tail. Just as she was about to meow at the general, someone's voice suddenly came from behind her. General, Zhan Zhao immediately put down her hands. Although she had already overcome her sense of shame, it was only in front of Sun Lang. At most, with Princess Pingyang as her teacher, she couldn't do anything more. She turned around and glared angrily at the detestable person who had ruined her plans. Meanwhile, the Mars swordsman strode over. He did not even look at the cat girl as he walked all the way to Sun Lang and knelt down in front of him. He said in a deep voice, "This old man has something to report." Sun Lang said indifferently, "Have you thought it through?" Wu Hui smiled bitterly and said, "One wrong step leads to many wrong steps. Now that things have come to this, there is no other way. If I were to attract the Emperor's murderous intent and temporarily escape with my life, this would mean endless trouble in the future. If I were to seek refuge under the Commander-in-Chief's command and conceal some things, danger would be imminent. I already have no other choice." Without batting an eyelid, Sun Lang said, "I am more tolerant than the Emperor. I have more conscience than the Emperor." Wu Hui nodded and said, "I believe you. Moreover, I'm a martial artist. I've been cultivating diligently since I was a child. I've used my blood and sweat to exchange for my own destiny. But your majesty has trampled on my martial arts, insulted my loyalty, and manipulated my destiny in an unacceptable way. I'm not talented, but I'm also indignant." Sun Lang sized him up, as if he was examining Wu Hui's heart. The old sword attendant knelt on the ground, motionless, waiting for the final verdict. A moment later, General Shunsei stretched out his hand, and Wu Hui was lifted up by an invisible force. He said, "Since that's the case, let's go inside and talk in detail." He looked at Zhan Zhao, who was standing to the side in a daze. "Bao Haizi and the others haven't left yet. I'll have to trouble you to invite them in to listen. Don't say I didn't give you a chance." After he finished speaking, He waved at Wu Hui, indicating for him to follow him in. He didn't look at Zhang Zhao again. Damn it, I've always tried to persuade people to leave, not to make peace. If it weren't for the fact that Bao Haizi is really pitiful, who would care about his relationship problems? Thinking of Zhang Zhao, who was deeply in love with Bao Shiren, Sun Lang was very unhappy. In the past 2 years, he had been carrying the power of self-preservation, and his mentality had gradually changed. He had become a holy monk who viewed beauty as dirt. It could be said that he was quite Buddhist, and he didn't have any other thoughts about Zhang Zhao. But even so, looking at the cat-eared girl who was thinking about Bao Shiren and seeing that he had to be the relationship mentor to bring them together again, he was very angry. Damn it, if the landlord doesn't have any extra money, why do I have to be the matchmaker for Shir? So he just threw out a sentence and didn't pay any attention to Zhang Zhao. But when the cat-eared girl heard this, it had a different meaning. Invite them in to listen. Don't say I didn't give you a chance. This sentence was the main point. You want me to do something, and you say you'll give me a chance. What chance are you giving me? Of course, it's the chance to work under General Shunsei. At this moment, the sun was shining brightly, and the spring flowers were blooming. Zhang Zhao's heart was filled with the sound of birds and the fragrance of flowers, and a feeling of joy lingered in her heart. She even wanted to jump up and meow, but she was worried that Sun Lang would think that she was meowing indecently, so she temporarily gave up on this idea. Miss Zhang's face was full of smiles, and she turned and ran. The tail with the flowers tied to it swayed briskly behind her. Sun Lang saw all of this, and he naturally misunderstood again. In the eyes of General Sun, Zhang Zhao, who was thinking about her ex-boyfriend and didn't know how to get back together, immediately showed a beautiful smile when she got the chance to interact with Bao Shiren. She couldn't wait to see the person she thought about day and night, and she didn't even thank him. A good person. Damn it. Sun Lang secretly hated it. I really want to burn Bao He to death. General Shin's imagination often jumped. When he thought of burning Bao He to death, he thought of a burning flame. And then he thought of Yin Yu's sacred fire sword. And then he thought of the sacred fire sword that came with the sacred fire sword. And then he thought of using the sacred fire sword to take revenge on Bao Shiren. It was said that Akari Shinji often shouted, "Can't be gay, can't be gay, can't be gay," in his heart when faced with Tsukasa's flirting. The effect was even better than Asuka's breast. Today, Sun Lang imitated his wisdom and resisted the temptation of a man's special attack. The great strength of health was one thing, but the sacred fire sword could not be casually used. After Zhang Zhao excitedly left the main hall, she found someone to ask about Bao Shiren's whereabouts. Bao He was in the middle of a trial. He stood in the defendant's seat, and his senior sister and 2 senior brothers carried out layers of interrogation and investigation to ensure that his party spirit was pure. Sun Lang has bad intentions. Kunan started with the results. We've dealt with him several times. Think about the results. We've been betrayed by him, schemed against by him, used by him, mocked by him, used by him as a tool, played by him like a fool. Have you forgotten all these lessons? Bao Shidi, don't be fooled by him. Now that he invited Master to the capital, he obviously has an ulterior motive. The legal loli looked at Bao Shiren and said in a deep voice, "Master retired as a marquis, and he has been supporting the country all his life. He is famous all over the world and is known as the master of martial arts, the right hand of the world. Regardless of the court, who doesn't respect him? Right now, the senior is already retired to the mountains and forests with innumerable honor and fame. Even if he retired with success, he also retired with courage. His life is perfect and flawless, and his name will definitely go down in history. He absolutely cannot come out again in his later years and be drawn into the whirlpool of the Emperor and Sun Lang's dogfight." This dog-eat-dog sentence was too disgraceful. Di Huaying whispered, "Senior sister, be careful with your words." Ku Nan sneered. "Did I say anything wrong? Sun Lang is a shameless old thief, and the Emperor is not much better. Today, the imperial family is in trouble because they did something wrong in the Great Desolate Mountain. Sun Lang, made outstanding military achievements for the country and the people. In the end, he was plotted against by the emperor. Luckily, he didn't die, so he came back to take revenge. This is right and proper, and no one could say anything. But Sun Lang took revenge because of a personal grudge, and the emperor fought back because of selfishness. This battle is just an ugly confrontation. She sighed. Because of this, Master can't participate. After all, the scale of this battle is unprecedented. In the future, it will definitely cause a huge uproar and endless waves. Master is famous all over the world. He is selfless and holy. When he returns to the capital, who will he help? If he is careless, he will lose his integrity in his later years. The other three were silent. A master's duty was even more important than filial piety. To protect the master's reputation and honor was the duty of every disciple. Even if they had to sacrifice their lives, they would not hesitate. Kunan was right. Wu Ho had already succeeded and retired. He was destined to leave his name in history. He definitely could not rush back to the capital and get involved in this mess. Bao Shiren said bitterly, but he thought of what Sun Lang had said to him before. Inviting your master back is to quickly settle the situation. My relations with people are not good. There are as many people who like me as there are people who hate me. I don't have enough prestige to make everyone accept me wholeheartedly. Are you that kind? I just want the people I care about to be able to live in a stable and stable country and to be able to walk freely under the sun. A frank and simple answer. So simple that it was almost hypocritical and perfunctory. Such words should not appear in the mouth of Sun Lang, a domineering official who threatened the imperial power, but he still said it, and Bao Shiren was inclined to believe it. His goal, maybe it was just that, inviting Wu Ho back, was not to borrow his power, was not to find an ally to defeat the emperor, but to quickly stabilize the country after a short period of turmoil. Sun Lang's thoughts were that simple. Even if this meant that the imperial court would have an extremely high prestige, a world-renowned minister that would be able to stand against him. This was something that was almost certain to happen, because after the emperor was overthrown, the various powers in the imperial court would think of ways to balance Sun Lang's power. Uniting around Marquis Wu was inevitable. This fellow, Bao Shiren sighed. Kunan heard the meaning behind this sigh. She frowned. Junior brother Bao. Master Bao lowered his eyes and softly said, Senior sister, you've made a mistake. When Master entered the world, it was not for his name to be recorded in history, nor was it for the admiration of the world. He recalled his master's voice, smile, and earnest teachings, and recalled his master's achievements and actions. He slowly said, ruling the country, managing the country, fighting against foreign enemies, protecting the citizens. Master's heart was for the common people, so he did countless heroic deeds and left his name in history. It was not for the sake of leaving his name in history that he did those things. The order of things must not be reversed, otherwise it would be 1,000 miles off. Kunan said, How could I not know about my master's ambitions? But this time is different. You have personally experienced the battle between Sun Lang and the emperor. Victory, defeat, life, and death, no one could say for sure. Everyone has to choose a side and place their bets. Master is no exception. So, have you thought of the consequences? If Master stands on Sun Lang's side and loses, his life's reputation will go down the drain. If he wins, he will also be hated by the royalists, and his reputation will be damaged. If he stands on the emperor's side, of course, the reputation of the royal family will increase greatly, and he may even be able to defeat Sun Lang. But if Sun Lang loses completely and goes berserk, what if he hurts Master? Kunan smiled bitterly and said, As disciples, we can't. No, you can't look at the problem like that. Bao Shiren interrupted his senior sister's words, his eyes bright. Now that Sun Lang and the emperor are fighting, the country is in danger, and the world is in danger. With the country in turmoil, Master will definitely do something. Why would he care about his reputation and hide deep in the mountains and not come out? As disciples, we can't make decisions for him. We have to at least report the current situation to Master and let him make his own decision. Speaking to this point, a warm smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. I think that Master's knowledge is 100 times greater than ours. He will definitely see through the layers of fog and see the essence of things, then make the right choice. From beginning to end, he has always stood on the side of the common people. I think this time will be the same. He will not care about his reputation, just like the 2 lines of the poem Sun Lang recited before. Just as he thought of the poem, Kanan impatiently interrupted. All right. You only know how to use logic to suppress me. You're the one who said it. Let Master make his own decision. If you write a letter, I will supervise you. You have to truthfully report the cause and effect of the matter. You also have to clearly write down all the shameless things Sun Lang has done. Bao Shiren smiled and nodded. Yes. At the same time, in the palace, the emperor put down the brush and picked up the silk filled with small words. He blew on it and nodded in satisfaction. There was also a jade belt on the side of the table. The voice of the devil Yuan sounded out of thin air. Close with an edict. I thought you were just saying. The emperor sneered. Today I was going to make a move on Bao Shiren, but in the end it was disrupted by Sun Lang, but it doesn't matter. Bao Shiren and Sun Lang are old friends, although they are at daggers drawn for a while. With Sun Lang's eloquence and ability, it won't be long before he can slowly assimilate Bao Shiren. If I'm not wrong, Bao Shiren is now gradually alienated from me. The ancestor Yuan, the devil Yuan, said, "This is very troublesome. Bao Shiren's master is not easy to deal with. If that person returns to the court and joins forces with Sun Lang, then your chances of winning will be reduced again. That's why I buried this." The emperor showed a cold smile. Even if Sun Lang's flowery words could deceive Bao Shiren's trust, he will definitely hide one thing. Most of the insiders in the court think that Sun Lang's revenge is justified, but no one knows what crime he has committed against the empire. Our Shinsei general is not as upright as they think. I look forward to the day when the truth is revealed. His smile became brighter. What about you? I really want to see the expression on Bao Shiren's face when he learns the truth. Sun Lang wants to invite the old man Zhuge back. I look forward to it. Chapter 997. Mars Sword Palace. Sun Lang sat boldly on the seat of honor at the front of the hall. Princess Ping Yang stood obediently by his side. Wu Hui sat below him with a slightly gloomy expression. Kunan and the other disciples of his sect sat to the side with different expressions. Zhang Zhao was the last to come in. She closed the door and looked around. Then she walked straight to Sun Lang and stood behind Princess Ping Yang, one on the left and one on the right. Her expression was very natural. Bao Shiren's eyes revealed surprise. He still didn't know that Zhang Zhao had already found a new boss. Sun Lang was also surprised, but he soon found a reason. It appeared. It was the plot of a third-rate love story. The brainless female protagonist who separated from the male protagonist because of a misunderstanding took the initiative to throw herself into the arms of the villain in order to take revenge on the male protagonist. Logically speaking, this kind of plot couldn't be any more bullshit. Because at the end of the story, after experiencing too much torture and hardship, the female lead would definitely recognize her own heart and kick the second male lead away, reconciling with the male lead again. However, the male lead would remember that he had been cheated on, and the bitter second male lead would also feel that he was a big fat fool, while the female lead was just a white lotus who was having fun in the midst of all this. However, this was not the main point of the problem. The main point was, I actually have to take on this role? What a joke. This Casanova would not do such a shameful thing. What's more, I have no feelings for this cat-eared girl. At most, I just want to touch her ears and tail. Sun Lang could not help but glare at Bao Shiren. Damn it, I betrayed the sacred flame, oath of the FFF group, and took the initiative to create an opportunity for you bastard to reconcile with Zhang Zhao. What happened in the end? You created this kind of drama again. At first glance, I know that you screwed up the matter, so that the cat-eared girl gave up on herself and drew a clear line with you. While he was thinking about this matter, he suddenly heard Wu Hui's voice. "General, can I start?" Sun Lang had to put aside his private matters for the time being and said, "Please go ahead." Wu Hui nodded his head in greeting. He was stunned for a moment. Then he sighed faintly. These things should have been left to rot in the coffin. Who would have thought? He raised his head and looked at the sword rack to the left of Sun Lang. The Mars Sword Palace was the residence of the Fire Radiant Sword Saint, and it was usually taken care of by the swordsman. The sword rack in the palace also worshipped the Imperial Army of the Swordsmen, not the Seven Luminaries' sacred sword. Just like now, the sword of the Imperial Army of the Mars Swordsmen, the Vermilion Bodhisattva Barbarian, was placed there quietly. The Imperial Army was Hutu's heavy weapon, the sharp blade of the nation. It could give a user extraordinary power. It was the extension of the warrior's limbs, the sublimation of the warrior's spirit, and the most trustworthy comrade in arms. Every warrior in the Imperial Army regarded their weapons as more important than their lives. It was because of the Imperial Army that warriors with mortal bodies could stand above the mortal world. The importance of the sword was self-evident. Wu Hui had once regarded this top-notch fire element sword as an indispensable treasure in his life. He had once carefully wiped the scorching hot blade of the sword over and over again, and knew every detail of the sword like the back of his hand. He had wielded the sword countless times, to the point that holding the sword had become an instinct. He regarded the Vermilion Bodhisattva Barbarian as his everything. After all, Wu Hui could not have children and had developed a solitary and suspicious personality. In his eyes, he could not trust anyone. Only the Imperial Army in his hands would not betray him. But not long ago, his Imperial Army had betrayed him, and it had almost taken his life. He would never forget the feeling of helplessness when his body was controlled by an evil power, the terror of his body gradually losing its functions and his brain ceasing to think. As a warrior with vigorous vitality and profound cultivation, he had already achieved great things on the path of martial arts. To be able to manage the Mars Sword Palace as a swordsman meant that he had already reached a higher level in the way of the sword and enjoyed the title of a grandmaster. But such a great expert had almost died without a sound. The fatal killing intent had come from the Imperial Army in his hands. Perhaps someone only needed to recite an incantation, and the Imperial Army would brazenly kill its master, no matter how powerful the other party's martial arts were, just like killing a dog. This was too terrifying and too ridiculous. Wu Hui looked at the Vermilion Bodhisattva Barbarian lying on the sword rack. His eyes no longer had the gentleness and fondness of the past. Toward this Imperial Army, there was only alienation and wariness in his heart. He even wanted to completely destroy it. "General, Her Highness, Lord Bao, and everyone else," he said softly, "everyone knows that the Imperial Army is the country's dignity, and the Imperial Army is Hutu's strength. Over the past several hundred years, the Imperial Court has relied on the Imperial Army to sweep across the world and become invincible. They have established the outstanding martial arts of the Celestial Empire. Countless people have trained hard, regardless of winter or summer, just so that they can be nominated for the martial arts examination and be conferred the title of the Imperial Army. From then on, they will soar into the sky and stand above the ordinary people. With the Imperial Army, we intimidated the barbarians. We protected the common people, and the country was peaceful. Even when the Sky Demon invaded and seized our territory, it was also the brave soldiers and the powerful Imperial Army that stopped the enemy's advance. The Imperial Army is Hutu's guardian, and the Imperial Army is the source of Hutu's strength. For thousands of years, it has been so. This is the story that you have heard since you were young." At this point, the swordsman of Mars sighed and looked bitter. "But do you know that in recent years, the Imperial weapons have gained new functions and meanings? Not only are they blades and shields, but they're also necklaces that tie our lives together. No matter if it is a famous border official or a Wu Jinshi who has just passed the Imperial examination, as long as they have an Imperial weapon, they will wear a necklace around their neck." and the rope of the collar is in the hands of his majesty. Wu Hui's tone became gloomy, almost like the deep sigh of a ghost, which was full of horror and coldness. He only needs to pull back a little and tighten the collar, and your neck will be cut off, and you will die without a burial place. Sun Lang's expression did not change. He could feel the shock in Princess Pingyang's heart, and hear Zhang Zhao's sudden and rapid heartbeat. He also saw the changes in the expressions of the four famous hunters. These four young people were not shrewd enough. Even Song Huifu, who had most stupefied expression, showed shock and horror in his eyes. For a moment, the hall was as silent as death. Then, Sun Lang broke the silence. He looked at Bao Shiren with great interest. Everyone, please give some reaction. Why didn't anyone jump out to criticize or refute such an absurd thing? Aren't you staunchly loyal to the emperor? How can you allow Wu Hui to talk nonsense? Among the four, Di Huaying was the oldest. He gently exhaled, his heart still beating wildly. It was difficult to calm down his feelings of panic and shock. It was not that they were not shrewd enough. It was just that the news was too shocking. It was like a modern person suddenly learning that the internet was a doomsday weapon used by aliens to exterminate mankind. Who the hell could stay calm? Di Huaying was silent for a moment, and then smiled bitterly. No wonder Senior's behavior was so strange. So it was because of this reason. In other words, just now you were almost. Wu Hui glanced at Sun Lang, and Sun Lang nodded. Then, the swordsman answered woodenly, "Yes, I was almost killed by my imperial army." It was an unforgettable and unbearable memory, he thought for a moment, and then a painful expression appeared on his face. He hissed. It was like you were in a pitch-black world, and under your feet was an endless deep sea. You fell into it and kept sinking. You couldn't see any light, you couldn't hear any sound, and you couldn't feel any heat. There was only endless darkness and coldness surrounding you, gradually robbing you of everything. You were confused and awake at the same time. You couldn't see anything, but you knew that you were gradually dying. His tone was wooden and cold, and there was an inexplicable chill in it. It made people feel his despair and fear at that time. Everyone shuddered at the thought. Not only were they frightened by Wu Hui's description, but more, they felt sympathy for the death of the rabbit. The reason was simple. The imperial army that also had it. Bao Shiren was in charge of the imperial government. Di Huaying was in charge of the Supreme Court, and Song Huifu was once a fourth-rank prosecutor. Many years ago, they and Kunan were known as the four famous detectives, and they had the halo of being disciples of the Marquis of Wu. Naturally, they were also assigned to the imperial army. Bao Shiren and Di Huaying later became officials. Song Huifu resigned and lived in seclusion, and Ku Nen wandered the world. Their imperial army was not taken back by the imperial court. On one hand, it was because of the Marquis of Wu. On the other hand, it was also because of the law. They were once famous detectives and had a great reputation. They had solved many cases and made many enemies. Therefore, even if they resigned, the imperial court allowed them to keep the imperial army to protect themselves in case their enemies came knocking on their door. But now their hearts sank. They felt that the imperial army that they had spent so much time with had become a hot potato. They wanted to throw it away immediately. Wu Hui saw the change in their expressions and said slowly, "Everyone, don't worry. If I'm not wrong, your imperial army is not in any danger for now." Bao Shiren frowned and said, "You're right." A cold light flashed in Kunan's eyes. For now, it was the same sentence, but people with different personalities had different points of attention. Wu Hui turned his gaze back to Zhu Tian Bodhisattva, barbarian on the sword rack, and said softly, "My imperial army has been tampered with. Your imperial army shouldn't be affected, right?" Bao Shiren said, "My imperial army has never left my side." Di Huaying and the others nodded. There's almost no martial artist in the world who did not value the imperial army. They wanted to hug it even when they were eating or sleeping. Song Huifu asked, "Tampered with the emperor?" Wu Hui smiled bitterly and nodded. "Of course. Other than the emperor, who else can make me willingly give up the imperial army?" Kunan asked, What does the Emperor want your Imperial army for? The bitterness on Wu Hui's face intensified. It's all because of the greed in my heart. I tried to take a shortcut, but I fell into a terrible trap. Martial arts rely on talent and sweat. I should have understood that there's no free lunch in the world. But at that time, I was blinded by greed. He sighed and said, I'll have to start from when the Qi family's second young master became the Fire Radiant Sword Saint overnight. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.